adventures, starting with American TV series. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 maybe next time. The next morning, after his usual run, Locke delivered his tax return to Susan's house and returned home with a basket of snacks from Susan as a token of his gratitude. Locke had been running into Mana from across the street these days on his morning runs. On the surface, she appeared generous and cheerful, and his conversations with Locke were quite normal. But Locke, having studied psychology, easily discerned the pent-up passion within her, which hadn't yet erupted. Mana must have been quite frustrated. She had originally thought marrying Mr. Ipez was just a short-term investment, but he was surprisingly healthy. Nearing 70, he remained energetic and likely had more than a decade to live. Mr. Ipez and Locke had chatted several times. Yesterday, he had gone hunting and had bagged a few rabbits. Seeing Locke jogging, he invited him to join him for beer and roasted rabbit that afternoon. The United States has a strong environmental program, but this can also lead to animal overgrowth, so hunting is legal there. Of course, hunting wasn't allowed at will. There were strict rules. Mr. Ipez was clearly a seasoned veteran. He said he enjoyed chatting with young people. It made him feel young again. Ms. Mana, listening nearby, wore a smile on her face, but her heart wasn't in it. Her short-term investments were likely to lead to losses, and she gradually realized this. She felt a sense of melancholy, unable to express her feelings. She also didn't dare divorce, fearing the prospect of being completely wiped out. Like many people trapped in the stock market, she was torn between thoughts and hesitation. Back home, Locke began preparing breakfast and then called Ashley and Paige. They had to go shopping today. He'd buy some groceries and clothes for Paige's dorm room, and then they'd drive to campus to set up their dorm. Unlike Sheldon, who had a meticulous bathroom schedule, Paige was a regular person, while Ashley preferred to sleep in. After finally getting her out of bed and having breakfast, Locke drove them both to the mall. Along the way, Peggy and Ashley discussed what to buy. Peggy made a mental list, while Ashley provided guidance. The three of them spent a morning shopping, drove to a nearby campus for lunch, and then returned to Peggy's dorm, their loot in hand. After leaving their belongings in the dorm, Locke didn't participate in the subsequent cleanup. He pushed open the door and stepped outside. The door to the dorm across from them was closed. Locke looked over to the dorm next door. Ben, Michael, and the other two were packing up to leave when they bumped into Locke in the hallway. "Hey, where's your dorm?" Michael asked. "I live nearby and don't have a dorm. I'm here to help Peggy move some groceries in. She's packing inside." Locke pointed to Peggy's dorm door. "Do you rent a place nearby?" Michael asked. "There are apartment buildings near the campus, where students live independently. In a co-ed dorm, it's hard not to get carried away by impulse, creating physical vibrations. If the lower bunk vibrates, the upper bunk will vibrate as well. It's a scientific principle. And there's also the added bonus of all sorts of noise." At this point, the others could only rely on earplugs or their Walkmans, silently cursing and hoping the time would pass quickly. They couldn't get angry. Everyone needs something sometimes. Even if they complained about why the other person didn't just get a room, they'd still have to put their earplugs in. There weren't so many wealthy second generations out there. Everyone was basically broke students, and the cost of a room was considerable, especially for more than just the first or second time. Naturally, they saved as much as possible. Of course, most of the time, they just let their roommates go out and hang a tie or something on the doorknob. After the date was over, they'd let their partner go. They wouldn't stay the entire night. On The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon once had the pleasure of seeing a tie on Leonard's door. Confused, he even knocked on Penny's door across the street to ask what it meant, asking what he needed to do, and threatening to storm into Leonard's bedroom if he didn't get an answer. Penny responded that she was usually the one in the room, so she didn't know how to be polite. It wasn't until Leslie, the representative of the female scientists, called Leonard a beast that the two finally realized their mistake and left. The next morning, Leonard woke up and looked at Leslie beside him, feeling hopeful. But before he could even start work, everything was over, leaving him a mere tool. Fortunately, Leonard didn't feel he was being shortchanged. With a beast's reputation spreading, he was outwardly unhappy, but secretly smug. Since everyone was a poor student, some rented apartments, And there were always friends looking to borrow a room. In the original story, young Sheldon had earned a considerable amount of friendship by lending out his school-provided single room. Michael, knowing Locke was living out, assumed Locke was also renting an apartment near the school. He put his arm around his shoulder, acting like a brother, hoping to borrow Locke's apartment someday. But before he could say anything, a woman with an ordinary appearance but a sexy figure approached. Michael, who had just been about to remind Locke not to forget his friend, fell silent, his head lowering unconsciously. But his eyes, drawn to the trembling, half-raised, peered inwardly. "Hi." The girl immediately filtered out Locke, whose face she hadn't seen, as well as the chubby and thin duo of Michael and Ken. Her eyes sparkled as she greeted the fresh-faced Ben, giving him a charming wink. Ben raised his hand, a reserved smile familiar to Locke. As the voluptuous girl opened Elizabeth's dorm door and closed it again after entering, the portly Michael immediately regained his spirits, his tone plaintive. "As expected, nothing has changed since college. That's the gap. The girls all like Ben, and they completely ignore us. It can't be helped," Locke said, unconcerned. He chuckled. "The gap between people can sometimes be greater than the gap between humans and dogs." What? Before Michael could react, the dorm door opened again, and Elizabeth emerged, instantly making him and the other two forget what they had just heard. Ignoring a few people, Elizabeth was about to leave when she suddenly glanced at Locke, sizing him up before saying, "Locke, hello, Miss Plimpton." Locke turned, recognizing Elizabeth and smiling. "Just call me Elizabeth." The future physics PhD looked Locke over. "Why didn't I see you in the dorm yesterday? I live out there," Locke explained. "I see." The physics PhD smiled. "That's even better. I wonder if I won't get a chance to visit again." Locke raised an eyebrow at the woman, her eyes alluring as she leaned in close. Elizabeth wasn't yet the accomplished physics PhD of the future, but she certainly had plenty of experience, and she was the type to actively hunt. He felt a little sorry for her. The car looked nice, but many people had already ridden it. At Locke's current level, he wasn't very interested. "I guess not today. I have a barbecue with my neighbors." Michael's eyes widened at Locke's refusal, as if Locke's refusal was incredibly unbelievable. What happened next was even more unacceptable to him. After being rejected, Elizabeth's expression froze for a moment, and then she smiled again. "I like barbecue, too. You can try my cooking skills. I'm sure you'll be satisfied." With a slightly seductive tone and charming eyes, Michael and the other two couldn't help but bend down slightly to avoid making a fool of themselves. Click. "Locke, I think we're still short of some things. We need to go to a nearby convenience store." Before Locke could answer, the door of Peggy's dormitory was opened, and Ashley walked out. She might be a little shorter than Elizabeth, but with her blonde hair and fierce figure, Michael still gasped. "Okay," Locke responded, and smiled at the future female doctor of physics. "Sorry, I have something else to do next. Maybe there's a chance next time." Chapter 77 Falling in Love Without Feeling. Holy shxt, only after Elizabeth, Locke, and Ashley left did Ken Jordan burst out in a curse. Can you imagine? Locke actually rejected the goddess of the physics department. Yeah, if it was for that blonde beauty, that's understandable. Fat Michael watched Ashley's back as they disappeared down the stairs. Ben remained silent, his usual reserve vanishing with a condescending smile. Maybe we could learn how to court girls from Locke, Michael thought suddenly. That's right. He seems to be in the math department like you. Once we get to know each other better, maybe we could ask him to introduce that blonde girl to her friends. Beautiful girls always hang out in groups, Ken agreed, glancing at Ben again. The only one we don't need is Ben. He's got his own skills, so there's no need to worry. Ben remained silent, merely gazing thoughtfully at Elizabeth's dorm. Downstairs, Ashley didn't rush to the convenience store. Peggy was a little tired and ready for a nap, so she took the opportunity to take Locke for a stroll around the university campus. Top-tier universities are truly different. My community college is like a collection of rundown houses compared to this, Ashley sighed as she strolled around. I thought you'd be more interested in modeling, Locke glanced at Ashley. It's just a hobby. Holding Locke's arm, Ashley said, Gabrielle said I'm too fat. If I want to be a model, I have to lose weight. The problem is, my legs are a little short, and my body is too big. My proportions don't suit me. That's all nonsense. Your figure is just right. A skinny figure like a model wouldn't make you look good at all, and it's unhealthy. Locke curled his lips. The current trend for models is all about skinny beauty, almost like nothing but bones. In Locke's opinion, that's a bit unhealthy. Future Victoria's Secret models would be a little better, at least not so exaggerated. Ashley is just right now. If she became a model, he thought, she would lose points. That's perfect. If you put in a little effort, after you graduate from community college in 2 years, I can arrange for you to go to college. You can experience college life, and you can become my secretary after graduation. Be your secretary? I think you want to control me forever, Ashley joked. I'm willing to do that, but I need your consent, Locke said. He wouldn't change his mind about not having children. If the girls who had been with him from the beginning left, he wouldn't stop them. If they were willing to stay with him wholeheartedly, Locke would ensure they had a comfortable life. However, Locke suspected that few people would be able to hold out until the end. People's perspectives change over time. Ashley might be willing now, but as she experiences more, her horizons broaden, and she faces more challenges, her perspectives might not change. Just like his current view on love, it was formed through repeated adjustments, and he couldn't be sure what he would think in the future. He took Ashley on a tour of the campus and then stopped at the convenience store to pick up some items he had missed. When he returned to the dormitory, Peggy had already woken up. This time, Locke volunteered to help, and the three of them worked together. Soon, they had the dorm ready, and without further delay, they returned to their dormitories. Upon returning to Fairview Town, they met Mr. Ipez, who reminded them not to forget the barbecue tonight and invited Mike. Mike is Susan's official partner in the series, but unfortunately, his life has been rather difficult. Coming from a poor background and experiencing a period of decadence, he quickly regained his composure and began to turn things around, becoming a warm-hearted and responsible man. He arrived in Fairview Town on a mission from a wealthy man to investigate his daughter, and upon meeting Susan, they fell in love. Unfortunately, fate was against him, and he suffered a series of mishaps. Just as he and Susan were about to marry, he was hit by a car and remained in a coma for 2 years. When he woke up 2 years later, he had lost not only his memory but also the girlfriend he was about to propose to. After many twists and turns, he regained his memory and won his girlfriend back. They married and had a child, but the immense pressures of life forced him to work hard to provide for his family. However, life ultimately wasn't kind to him. Out of kindness, he helped his boss and neighbor, who were entangled with loan sharks. This infuriated the loan sharks, and he was ultimately shot, leaving Susan and their 5 or 6-year-old son behind. Honestly, the ending was so poignant that Locke couldn't help but lament it. He felt that TV dramas on both sides of the Taiwan Strait share a surprising resemblance. Good people often suffer, and while they may not always receive a happy ending, they often sacrifice for the happiness of others. This perhaps mirrors real life. Knowing that Ipitz was also inviting Mike, Locke abandoned his plans to go alone and instead brought Ashley to Ipitz's house. Americans love barbecue, and families with the means often have their own grills, and many are skilled at it. Sheldon's father, George, loves the secret recipe of his grandmother, Connie. Many American families have specialized recipes, sometimes even passed down from generation to generation. George went to great lengths to acquire Connie's barbecue recipe, nearly even arguing with her. Because it was a neighborhood gathering, everyone dressed casually. Mr. Ipez, Mana, Locke, Ashley, Mike, and Susan sat together. Locke raised his glass first. We're able to gather here today thanks to Mr. Ipez for providing the rabbit and the venue. Cheers, cheers, everyone raised their glasses and took a sip. Mr. Ipez then raised his glass and said, and thanks to Locke. Thanks to his barbecue skills, we can enjoy such delicious barbecue. Cheers. I want to thank fate for bringing us together, Susan said, raising her glass as well, but she looked at Mike as she spoke. Mike laughed, too. Cheers. Okay, I think everyone can't wait. Let's get started, Locke joked with a smile, otherwise the wine prepared by Mr. Ipez will not be enough. Ha ha ha. Everyone laughed and put the barbecue on the plate and started chatting. Mr. Ipez took the initiative to talk to Locke about investment. The returns in the financial industry are indeed attractive. Every time I start a project, I need to get money from investors like you. The returns in the financial industry are also accompanied by huge risks. They are not as predictable and stable as the real industry, Locke said with a smile, and with builders like Mr. Ipez, we can live in the house we have now. Ha ha ha. Mr. Ipez smiled and hugged Manny beside him. I'm old and can't manage the company anymore. I handed over the business to my children. Now I just enjoy life. Speaking of which, I also invested in a little mining. It was Ashley who introduced it to me. Really? Yes, it's in a gold mine in Prosperity Town, Ashley's hometown. Gold mine? Wow, that sounds great. It's just a simple investor. The vein is not big. After chatting about business for a while, they quickly turned to daily topics. Mr. Ipez talked about his favorite hunting. I have a house in Hartford, the capital of Connecticut. Someday we can go there together to play. It's a unique experience to hunt and eat the prey there. That sounds good. Trust me, you'll love it. Chapter 70-80 wants to meet you. With the start of university, Locke's schedule became increasingly busy. He didn't want to complete a 4-year undergraduate program, but instead planned to compress it into 2 years. This naturally put him on a tight schedule, as the grade for a course at American universities depends not only on the final exam but also on his regular grades, attendance, and class performance. Locke only had free time when he returned home at night and on weekends. During the week, he and Peggy would rush between classes according to their scheduled class schedule. Thanks to his exceptional intelligence, he could easily complete his assignments. An average student would be busy from morning till night, leaving little time for enjoyment. Princeton University is a world-class institution, and these days, it's not like it was a few decades ago. The requirements are rigorous, and the exams are challenging, putting immense academic pressure on students. If students don't keep up, they risk being expelled and denied their diplomas. Most of these students come from modest backgrounds. To attend a prestigious university, they risked their futures and took on massive student loans. Every year, the tragedy of being expelled from prestigious universities plays out. The future will be different. American universities are ultimately businesses, and the frequent occurrence of such incidents can dampen students' courage to stake their futures. To maintain graduation rates, admissions are gradually relaxed over time, and exams are made easier. 20 or 30 years later, the pressure of dropping out is barely felt, and students enjoy a positive campus experience. Parties, fraternities, and other fun activities become more frequent each year, no longer confined to special occasions. Everything gradually becomes a rehash of high school. By the time they graduate, many students have learned virtually nothing, their minds empty, and become what many consider high-scoring, low-achieving students. In contrast, the current students, who are under immense pressure and forced to work incredibly hard, will likely have a more vibrant future. A month passed unnoticed, and Edie's burned-down house was finally rebuilt. She threw a party for the occasion, inviting the neighbors. Locke, Peggy, and Ashley arrived at Edie's new home, bearing gifts. "Congratulations, Edie," Locke handed the wine he had brought to Edie. "The new house is beautiful, thank you, that's so thoughtful." Edie smiled as she accepted the high-end wine Locke handed her. After a few words of greeting, she let them in and continued to entertain the other guests. Ashley placed the roast chicken on the table on the lawn. Most of the families attending had brought some food from home. The three of them chatted with the neighbors who had come to attend. Locke noticed a woman in her 30s standing outside Mike's house, chatting with him. He recognized her. Mike had come to the house because a billionaire had asked him to investigate the disappearance of his daughter, who had been missing for many years. The woman was the sister of the billionaire's daughter. Mike had been the missing girl's boyfriend. They had both fallen into drug addiction in their youth. Mike came to his senses first, but the girl continued to sink deeper. Later, the girl secretly gave birth to a child and ran away from home. To survive, she sold the child to Paul Young's family, who is now Paul's son, Zach. Until the girl successfully quit drugs and found Paul's family to get her son back, she had a conflict with Paul's family and was killed by Paul's wife, and the body was hidden. The girl did not tell her father about her search for Paul's family, so she disappeared for many years, and the rich man did not find his daughter until recently when he found the girl near the town. Locke kept an eye on the girl and Mike until they finished chatting. "Wait here for a minute, I have something to do." Locke quickly came to the girl and called her. "Hey, hello." The girl looked back at Locke. "What's up, are you Kedra?" Locke didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. "I know some news about your sister. Who are you?" The girl was startled and looked at Locke warily. "I recently moved to Town and just happened to get some information." Locke ignored the other party's guard and said with a smile, "I have some information for your father. It's all about your sister. Can you please help me contact him?" The rich man's daughter, Kedra, hesitated for a moment before saying, "Wait a minute, I need to make a call." She picked up the phone and said a few words, then looked at Locke. "He wants to meet with you." "So where did you get this information?" the rich man asked. "In the rich man's villa." Locke sat face to face with him, watching him look through the information he had taken out. "I think you already knew my identity on the way here." Locke didn't beat around the bush. "Not long before I moved to Fairview, a housewife named Mary committed suicide. By chance, I learned that one of my neighbors, while sorting through her belongings, found a letter that might point to the reason for her suicide." "You're interested in a housewife's secret. You know, people like us are always extremely concerned about our own safety," Locke said. "I specifically asked someone to investigate the letter, but it turned out to be sent anonymously by Mrs. Huber. Then I found these notes at Mrs. Huber's house, and based on the clues, I was able to investigate these things. I didn't expect Irie to have a son." The other man was silent for a long time, as if he were feeling a mixture of emotion and relief. "Perhaps this is God's chance for me." The wealthy man had been diagnosed with an incurable brain tumor. With his wealth, he could easily hire the world's top experts, but the results were not optimistic. One daughter had died, and his other daughter, Kedra, was unwilling to learn how to run a company. This made him sad that the business empire he had built would have no successor. The sudden appearance of this grandson gave him hope. Locke, knowing the plot, could guess his opponent's thoughts. He also knew that later in the story, near death, the rich man finally discovered that Zach was his grandson. Zach had inherited the rich man's considerable inheritance, but due to his lack of character and ability, his fortune was stolen by those around him with ulterior motives, and he himself became a drug addict. This time, the rich man at least had some time to teach Zach. He didn't care about the final outcome, he cared about the mission he had just completed, helping the rich man find his daughter's murderer and his grandson. At that moment, the mission was completed, and the reward of 300 potential points had been received. "So, the man who killed my daughter and stole my grandson is this guy named Paul Young." The rich man shifted his attention to another point. "I can't confirm the specific details, but he and his wife, who committed suicide, are definitely closely related to your daughter's disappearance." The rich man's eyes were filled with deep hatred, but in front of Locke, an outsider, he would not reveal his intention to deal with Paul. He looked back at Locke. "Well, thank you for your great help. Is there anything I can do for you?" Chapter 79 Security Company's Thoughts. The tycoon expressed his willingness to reward Locke generously. If Locke were an ordinary person, the tycoon would likely have simply given him a sum of money, a considerable sum in the eyes of ordinary people. But Locke, also a super-rich man, didn't care about such a small sum. He initially undertook this task simply to complete the mission. Compared to most missions, which rewarded no more than 100 points, this one offered a considerable amount of potential points. Locke suspected that the impact of this mission would significantly alter the future plot of Desperate Housewives, as there would be no shortage of plot points related to the Paul family. Since the tycoon offered a reward, Locke gave it a moment's thought and recommended Sky Fund's fund management program. The tycoon ultimately agreed to invest $20 million, Sky Fund's largest investment to date. With this investment, the work enthusiasm of several Sky Fund employees soared, believing that Locke was leveraging his connections as a wealthy second-generation rich man, and that the company's future prospects would only brighten. Locke left the tycoon's villa in a good mood, but unexpectedly, just 2 days later, he received news of Mrs. Huber's death. Meanwhile, Paul Young was also taken into police custody. While preparing to bury the body, he was spotted by the wealthy man's immediate surveillance team, who then called the police. A few days later, Zach also disappeared from town. At this point, Mike took the initiative and went to Locke's house. "Hey, can we talk privately?" Mike glanced at Ashley, who was standing next to Locke. "Sure," Locke nodded, and they walked out onto the lawn outside the room. "Thank you so much for finding Zach and figuring out Irie's death," Mike said. "I owe you a big favor. So Zach is indeed the child of that girl and you?" "Yes, he's with his grandfather now," Mike said. "I haven't seen Zach since he was born, but that man's time is running out. I still have plenty, so I need to give him more time." "That's good, too. At least it puts one thing behind you, and you can get your mind back on track and start a new life," Locke said, motioning to Susan, who had just left the room across the street to take out the trash. "Hey," Susan, who had just finished taking out the trash, spotted Mike, waved, and walked over. "What are you guys talking about?" Mike opened his mouth, trying to come up with an excuse when Locke took the initiative. Is it about hiring Mike for a job? Is there a problem with your plumbing? Susan asked. It's not the plumbing. It's an investment project I have in Prosperity Town. I need someone to check on it every month. Is it the gold mine we talked about the other day at Mr. Ipez's? Yes, I need someone to check on the mine's progress on my behalf and bring back the latest financial information each month. Each trip will take about 3 or 4 days. As for the compensation, how about $1,600 a month? Wow, that's a lot of money, Mike said. It's a lot, but it's hard to find someone trustworthy. Locke smiled and said, I think you're worth the price. What do you think? That sounds good. From now on, I'll call you boss, Mike agreed without hesitation. His financial situation is very average. Although there is a lot of cash in his house, it was all given to him by the rich man for investigation. Now that the investigation is over, the rich man doesn't care about this small amount of money. But he also needs to think about his own life next. Providing this job to Mike is mainly to provide him with some financial help. Among the main characters in Desperate Housewives, Mike is the one that Locke thinks is the best. At the same time, he and Susan are the couple with the worst financial conditions among the 4 housewives' families. Their income is not high. In the plot, Mike and Susan fell into a financial crisis not long after they got married. As for Susan's situation, Locke, who helped her file taxes, has a lot to say. Locke did not expect that their financial situation would completely improve with just this job, but if there are suitable opportunities in the future, he will definitely give them priority. After settling the matter, Locke returned home. Ashley came to protect Locke. I never thought Paul was such a heartless murderer. He not only killed Mrs. Huber, but also murdered a young girl over a decade ago. Many people have hidden secrets, Locke shrugged. It's hard to see through a mask. The wealthy man's daughter was killed by Paul's wife, but the wealthy man apparently didn't care. After finding his daughter's body, he blamed Paul for her death. Paul faces life imprisonment, and Locke assumed the wealthy man would have someone take good care of him in prison. Ashley didn't know the intricacies of the situation, she simply felt a sense of dread. I haven't been able to leave the house these past few days. If necessary, I can hire some bodyguards. Forget it. It feels weird to have someone around all the time, Ashley thought, then declined. At this moment, Locke suddenly realized that for a billionaire, he still didn't have any bodyguards. This was mainly because Locke was much more powerful than the bodyguards. If he had bodyguards with him, he wouldn't know who would protect him in times of danger. Even when he was sleeping, relying on the magical protection and warning items he carried with him, he didn't worry about being attacked or assassinated. But he didn't need to. Ashley, Tang Wei, and Peggy weren't like Locke, they were just ordinary girls. If someone realized they couldn't take Locke down, they might attack them. So having someone close to them would at least serve as a warning. It would be best to set up your own security company and recruit people. That way, you'd have a more accurate picture of the bodyguard's situation and even conduct regular psychological tests to minimize any ulterior motives, putting the establishment of a security company on the immediate agenda. Locke said to Ashley, "We'll still assign you some bodyguards. If you don't like close protection, you can have them follow you from a distance. It won't interfere with your daily life, and you won't even notice their presence. However, if you do that, you might not be able to react quickly enough in the event of an emergency. No need. I'm just a little worried about Mrs. Huber's situation. It's not that easy to get into danger." Ashley declined. Locke did not continue to persuade them, but he had already made up his mind that after the security company was established, he would select suitable personnel to serve as bodyguards for the girls. Chapter 80 Locke's Conditions. Very good. I called you here this time because I want you to attend a party that the school will hold next week. In the principal's office, the principal said this to Locke, Peggy, and Sheldon, who were sitting opposite him. "You know I'm not interested in parties or anything like that," little Sheldon said frankly. The principal's mouth twitched. Compared to Locke, who is already 18 years old, and Peggy, who behaved well and was sensible, little Sheldon had already caused a lot of trouble in less than 2 months of school. So much so that he regretted admitting little Sheldon to the school many times in his heart, and he didn't even know how many times he tried to suppress the idea of kicking little Sheldon out. "Sheldon, I certainly understand your commitment to research, but your presence here adds a lot to the school, and we want donors to feel their donations are well-deserved." Suppressing his frustration, the principal patiently explained, "You should know that the school's operating funds, including your scholarships, come from government grants and donations, so we must ensure they feel they are getting value for money. I see. You want to showcase my extraordinary intelligence at such a young age to raise funds, little Sheldon said, suddenly realizing. Perhaps we can phrase it more tactfully, the principal suggested. It's almost the same, Sheldon said, realizing he understood everything. The principal knew Sheldon's personality wouldn't allow him to understand much more, but since this genius boy could serve as a facade for sponsorship, he could only silently tolerate little Sheldon's troubles. Unwilling to continue nagging Sheldon, he let him go, then looked at Locke and Peggy. I trust you understand the importance of this banquet. Compared to Sheldon, the mature and steady Locke and the well-behaved and sensible Peggy were more reassuring. Or perhaps it's their importance to the school, Locke shrugged. Of course, as a member of the school, I'm willing to contribute. I just have some questions I'd like the school to help with. That requires negotiation, the principal understood. Compared to dealing with the difficult Sheldon, this kind of conversation felt more natural. Student Locke, your diligence and achievements in school are obvious to all. The school is willing to help you with any minor problems you may encounter. The principal emphasized the minor problems to ensure Locke was aware of the situation and not to ask for too much. It's just a small personal request, Locke said with a smile. It's mainly because Peggy and I are learning much faster than the average student. We've even completed some of the courses we haven't yet finished through self-study. But according to school regulations, we still need to attend classes regularly and can't take exams to earn credits until the end of the semester. I think this is a huge waste of our talents, so I think the school could perhaps conduct some course assessments in advance to give us the opportunity to gain more knowledge. This has always been Locke's wish. He wanted to complete his courses quickly. After all, taking exams would earn him corresponding potential points. This would give him more time to focus on other things in the future, such as studying magic or finding ways to trigger and complete more quests. With Peggy and his accumulated knowledge, they should be able to obtain a bachelor's degree or even a master's degree in a very short time. I understand your situation, the principal began to weigh the situation. The school had strict regulations regarding the earning of credits, but according to the usual American principles, everything could be traded. The principal was simply evaluating whether this deal was a good deal. After a moment's reflection, he asked, will you choose to complete your master's and doctoral degrees here? He had met geniuses before and knew that for them, a normal course schedule wouldn't constrain them. Given the opportunity, the two men in front of him could even earn the credits needed for graduation in just 1 year. This would bring immense prestige to the school, and with their genuine talent, they wouldn't have to worry about external scrutiny. However, he still needed them to stay and create more value. Of course, Princeton University's mathematics department is world-class. Even after you graduate with your doctorates, we hope to collaborate more closely with the school on research, Locke said tactfully. Very good. After this banquet, I'll pass on the details so you can learn more quickly. The principal postponed this matter until after the banquet, clearly hoping the two would perform well in front of the donors. No problem, leave it to us, Locke assured, glancing at Peggy. Having reached a consensus with the principal, the two men left the office, only to see young Sheldon still standing outside, waiting. What are you still doing here? Peggy asked. I'm waiting for you to join me in physics class, Sheldon said. If you delay any longer, you'll be late. Locke had enrolled in the mathematics department, but physics and mathematics are closely related. Many magical principles, in particular, require both math and physics to be understood and applied. So Locke also enrolled in physics courses. Thanks to the extensive preparatory courses offered by his private school, he wouldn't have been able to manage his academic schedule. That's based on your speed, Locke replied silently, causing Sheldon's eyes to widen. One of Sheldon's biggest concerns about college was the sheer size of the campus. Classes were held in separate classrooms, and getting to the next class after one ended required a quick packing schedule for the average student. When it was Sheldon's turn, not only did he have to quickly pack his books, he also had to walk or even jog, sometimes even missing the mark. He disliked exercise, so this requirement was his biggest problem. Mary suggested a bicycle over the phone, but Sheldon's motor skills weren't good enough to handle it without the training wheels. If he wore training wheels, he'd be looked at like a child, especially in front of Locke and Peggy. With little Sheldon's pride, the thought of being mocked by Locke and Peggy, whom he considered as rivals, was simply unbearable. Locke often called him a giant baby, but little Sheldon couldn't surpass him in his area of intelligence, his strongest point, proclaiming his intellectual maturity. He was often lectured by Locke, which was infuriating. The three of them went downstairs first. Peggy got on her bike, while Locke walked quickly. Little Sheldon could only try to keep up, only to watch Locke and Peggy drift further and further away. Finally, when he arrived at the classroom, Locke and Peggy were already sitting in the front row, waiting at ease. Luckily, his favorite spot, the center, was still empty. He quickly went over to sit down and glanced at Locke beside him. Thinking of the previous classes together, he felt a little awkward again. Even his methodical movements of taking out paper, pen, and books from his small suitcase became stiff. Chapter 81 Chandler's New Girlfriend. When little Sheldon and Beverly returned home that evening, Leonard, returning from high school, saw the grouchy little Sheldon and couldn't help but smile. He could guess that little Sheldon had been frustrated at school, most likely because of Locke. It took a lot of effort for him to suppress the thought in his heart. If you're upset, tell me and I'll cheer you up. Alfred casually asked how his day was, prompting little Sheldon to grumble, "How was your day?" "All I can say is that having physics class with Locke and Peggy was the worst." Little Sheldon was even more upset when he thought that Locke and Peggy had stolen the limelight. He had always been the most popular kid in class. Whenever the teacher asked a question, he was the first to answer, sharing his favorite trivia with everyone present. But ever since he met them, especially since they'd been in class together, it was always Peggy and Locke who stole the show. "I know the answers to all those questions, but every time I raise my hand, the teacher chooses Peggy or Locke. It's like they're ignoring me." "A genius. Do I need to explain why they didn't choose you to answer the question?" Leonard internally grumbled as he listened to little Sheldon's incessant complaints, barely managing to suppress the widening of his lip. Seeing this reaction from his much-hated little Sheldon was truly delightful. He couldn't wait to finish high school so he could get to college and witness little Sheldon's frustrations. After a day of classes, Locke drove Peggy back to Fairview. On the way, he said, "Tomorrow weekend, I'm going to the farm. I've met up with some friends from New York. We're staying there for the night and we'll be back on Sunday night. Do you want to come?" "Sounds great. Last time I went to the farm, I just had a quick look around and didn't really have a good time. This time, I'm definitely going to give it a good spin." Peggy piqued her interest. "I'll talk to Susan. She won't be helping me this weekend." Although Peggy had chosen Susan as her guardian, she clearly wasn't very close to her, despite her recent efforts. For a gifted girl like Peggy, true friendship required gaining her inner approval. Beyond blood ties, recognition requires a close intellectual connection, which is a key reason why Locke and Paige are so close friends. While Paige appears more normal than Sheldon in the Young Sheldon plot, she possesses a certain inner pride, especially as she grows older. Since the start of the school year, Locke has witnessed numerous instances of Paige's sharp tongue bringing college students to tears. Fortunately, Paige is far more measured than Sheldon, and with Locke's help, Sheldon has become the school's most recognizable troublemaker. The next day, Locke, Ashley, and Paige had an early breakfast and drove to the farm. Upon entering, Paige eagerly surveyed the property. Although she'd seen similar mansions in New York before, the thought of living here for the next 2 days filled her with happiness. Paige grabbed her belongings and headed upstairs, where she'd spotted a room she'd previously planned to occupy long-term. Locke then descended into the basement and opened the door to the vault. The vault was already densely packed with treasures. The treasures Locke had taken from the storage space this time completely filled the shelves. The vault contained the finest treasures, and a vast quantity remained stored elsewhere. Fortunately, there were several separate rooms adjacent to the vault. He closed the vault door and locked the basement door before heading to the master bedroom to change. After changing, Locke opened a cabinet in the bedroom. Rows of various guns covered the entire wall. After the farm was transferred, Locke performed some simple modifications, moving some of the guns to the manor, intending to practice target shooting there. Meditational combat can train awareness and improve skill levels, but to achieve perfect performance, one needs to practice it regularly and become familiar with the feel. Locke looked around and his eyes fell on a large gun, the renowned Barrett heavy sniper rifle. He took it out for maintenance and then called Mr. Barry. Mr. Barry was a cowboy who had always worked for the farm. After purchasing the farm, they all worked for Locke. After taking the well-maintained Barrett downstairs, Locke instructed the servants to greet Ashley and Peggy while he drove to the outside of the manor. Mr. Barry was already waiting, a row of prepared baseball pitchers spread out on the lawn. Locke inspected the area, found a spot, unsheathed his Barrett, and began aiming. Hiding in the distance, Mr. Barry glanced through his binoculars at Locke's chosen spot and was stunned. Having served on the farm for many years, he was naturally familiar with guns, even using them regularly during his annual hunts for the predators that overran the farm's forests. However, the cowboys on the farm mostly used shotguns and rifles, and had rarely seen anything as large as this. He also thought Locke was being a bit overly ambitious, believing only a sharpshooter could hit a target at such a distance. However, he didn't comment, believing the owner had the right to play with it. After all, these wealthy individuals often had diverse hobbies, and a love of guns wasn't uncommon. Receiving Locke's command over the intercom, Barry pressed a button on the remote, and a baseball flew out. Then, a loud gunshot blasted the flying baseball to pieces. Mr. Barry was stunned by the precision of such a long-range shot. The range must have been at least 1.6 kilometers. But he didn't have time to be surprised. Locke's orders came through the intercom again, and he continued pressing the remote buttons in sequence, and the loud gunfire rang out again. Boom boom boom. Meanwhile, on the way to the farm, Monica, driving, exclaimed, "I can't believe Chandler actually hooked up with Martha, and she's a female NYPD officer. Joey, what do you think?" Joey twitched his lips but said nothing. As the playboy among his friends, he was outshone by Chandler. He'd been teased about it for days. "I just hope Chandler doesn't get startled by the sudden appearance of a gun when he's having an affair with someone he doesn't want to describe," Ross, sitting in the passenger seat, grumbled. Chandler could find such a beautiful and sexy girlfriend, but why was he getting divorced? "Aren't you worried Martha might hear you?" Monica suddenly raised the intercom. "Do you want to say it again into this?" "Forget it." Ross immediately backed down. As a normal person who wouldn't even touch a gun, he instinctively feared the sight of an armed police officer. Martha, Chandler, and Phoebe were sitting in the car behind Tang Wei, so he didn't dare speak. "Let's talk about Locke. I never thought Locke was so rich, he could actually buy such a large farm." Ross cleverly changed the subject. "Indeed. When he said he worked at a Wall Street financial firm, we thought he was an intern, but he turned out to be the boss." Joey said, "Do you think we should ask him about any stocks that are going to rise sharply? Who can say for sure? Even Buffett can make mistakes sometimes. Didn't Locke recommend his fund company's project? It's expected to return 6% a year. Monica and I both bought some," Ross said. "It's a shame I don't have any savings, but Chandler bought quite a bit." Joey shrugged. As a solo actor, his financial situation was quite tight. He couldn't even afford his insurance when he was broke, so he had to shamelessly borrow money from his roommate. Unlike Joey, Chandler worked at a computer company, earned a good salary, and was a big saver, so he invested a lot when he saw an opportunity. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82. There is a TV in the room. "Look, right up ahead," Monica said from the driver's seat, catching sight of the farm's outline in the distance and pointing ahead. Just then, the sound of a Barrett rifle rang out. "Oh my God," Ross jumped, unable to help but scream. It's not unusual for someone on a farm to have guns. "What are you yelling about?" Monica rolled her eyes at Ross and drove forward, following the sound of gunfire. A moment later, they spotted Locke sprawled on the grass. "Look, that's Locke." "Relax a little," Monica pointed at Locke, soothing the trembling Ross. "I didn't expect Locke to be so interested in something so dangerous." Ross relaxed slightly, but still hesitated, afraid to get out of the car. "Okay, let's go over and say hello." Monica pulled alongside and saw Locke seem to have noticed them, waving. "Hey, Locke, I didn't expect you'd like a gun like this." Joey watched Locke reassemble the Barrett, his eyes lit with interest. After all, it's hard not to be interested in guns. Rose, however, didn't fully relax until Locke placed the suitcase containing the Barrett in the car. Locke, Tang Wei and the others, who were following behind, got out of their cars and greeted them. After a few pleasantries, Locke took the lead, and the three-car group arrived at the manor. "Everyone, come in." Locke ushered everyone into the house and glanced at Martha, who was walking with Chandler. He hadn't expected his prediction to hit the nail on the head. Chandler had indeed become a couple with this policewoman. He wondered what had become of Martha's ex-boyfriend, the unlucky policeman. It seemed likely that Martha and Chandler were together because Locke had altered the plot, depriving the unlucky policeman of his chance to shine, depriving him of a heroic moment to save the damsel in distress. Instead, Martha, feeling down after being punished for failing to catch the long-legged robber, had been given an opportunity by Chandler. Thinking of this, Locke felt a brief moment of guilt before enthusiastically introducing everyone to the house. The bedrooms are all on the second floor. You can take any of the others, except for the ones already occupied. Just leave your luggage inside. The drive here took quite a while, and after a brief tour of the house, it was already lunchtime. Everyone sat in a circle around the oak dining table, and the chef brought out the prepared meal. After Locke toasted, he didn't serve bread like a French meal, but went straight to the meat. Chandler hummed after taking a bite, then couldn't help but ask, "What kind of meat is this?" "It's so delicious. The cowboys on the ranch hunted 2 deer today, and I had them sent to the kitchen," Locke replied. "So we're eating fresh venison," Monica began to eat with some surprise. The venison had a texture similar to beef, but was even more tender. It was freshly killed and eaten, and coupled with the chef's skill, it left almost everyone relishing it. This almost ruled out Phoebe. When she heard it was venison, she couldn't help but exclaim, "Those little deer are so adorable, how could you bear to eat them?" You know, Phoebe sometimes couldn't help but overflow with love, calling herself a vegetarian and even somewhat of an extremist. In the story, she heard that used Christmas trees were shredded and made into paper, and her heart overflowed. She even forcibly stopped the disposal of the used trees, causing Joey to lose his hard-earned part-time job. Homo! Just as Phoebe yelled in condemnation, Monica, knowing her character well, stuffed a piece of venison into her mouth. The next moment, she was truly enchanted by the delicious taste, and no longer spoke of protecting the deer. Her entire attention focused on the delicious venison in front of her. As a result, Phoebe ate a huge amount, more than anyone else except Joey. After all, Joey was a big eater, having once devoured a giant turkey weighing dozens of pounds in a single meal. "This venison is so delicious. I wonder if I'll ever get to eat it again," Martha exclaimed. "Don't worry, when you go back I'll have someone hunt another one and refrigerate it for you to take back. It will last you a long time." Locke took a sip of red wine. "Deer meat is not a rare thing, I just want to try something new. But the cooking will require trouble from Monica, the chef." "Leave it to me," Monica agreed without hesitation. When everyone had almost finished eating, Locke said, "There will be venison soup later, but this thing is very nutritious. If you don't have a partner, you'd better take it easy." Noticing Locke's glance at him, Ross said unconvincedly, "Why are you staring at me? Didn't Joey bring back a female companion? But you and Carol have been separated for a while," Monica said. "You still don't have a date. I remember you used to like reading those Wonder Woman comics. And Joey said a few days ago that he saw you sneaking out of the door of the video store." "He recognized the wrong person," Ross retorted loudly, then glared at Locke and said, "Give me a bowl of soup." Shrugging his shoulders, Locke said, "Don't worry, I'll arrange for someone to send you what you need tonight. There is also a pay TV and VCR in the room." "Ha ha ha." Everyone laughed for a while, and Locke asked Monica, "How is your job search going?" "I haven't found one yet," Monica shook her head helplessly. Monica had worked hard for years before finally becoming the head chef at a restaurant. But one day, for a minor mistake, she was scolded by her boss. Overwhelmed with emotion, she retorted and was fired. Locke had invited everyone over to relax, hoping to give Monica some peace of mind. Of course, he also wanted to share the good news now, so she wouldn't be spoiled for the next couple of days. "Actually, I know the owner of a restaurant. Their head chef is about to resign. If you're interested, I can recommend you for an interview." "Really? Which restaurant?" "Chelsea's Lover." "What? Oh my God. It's the best lovers restaurant in New York. Are they really willing to hire me?" "It's just an interview. I have to pass to get a chance," Locke emphasized. "Thank you so much, Locke. I'm definitely going to be the head chef at Cheshire's Lover." At that moment, Monica's fighting spirit was surging, her competitive spirit and obsessive-compulsive disorder all surging. "I'm glad you're interested. I'll give you the owner's contact information later. He'll tell you he's a friend and he'll arrange it," Locke said. "Since you know the restaurant owner, could you do me a favor?" Chandler said. "Martha and I have been wanting to go there for a while, but our reservations are booked for 3 months." "No problem. I'll talk to the owner. If you want to go, just call a day in advance and he'll arrange it." "Great. Let me toast you," Chandler raised his glass. Chapter 83: Tang Wei's Trouble. After spending the entire weekend at the farm with his old friends, Locke gained a more intuitive understanding of the farm's environment. Thinking about the security company he was setting up, an idea suddenly occurred to him. This place seemed very suitable for training. This 3,600-acre farm has mountains, lakes, forests, swamps, and even snow-capped mountains in winter, making it a natural training ground. As long as a suitable location is chosen to build a training center, the lakes, forests, swamps, and mountains that the farm cannot use can be utilized. By placing the farm under the name of a security company, the farm estate's taxes can be reduced, and the farm's output can be directly provided to the security company. In addition, with the security company's personnel training, they can also take on the job of protecting the estate. In this way, the safety of the treasure in the estate's basement will be greatly improved. Back at school on Monday, Professor Gates, the lecturer, concluded his lecture by assigning a math problem to all math students. This is extra homework, not part of the regular classwork. Anyone here who can solve it before the end of the semester will be able to join me at Cambridge University for an academic exchange next year. There's no limit on the number of participants, as those who have previously solved this equation are world leaders in mathematical physics. Young Sheldon, already packing his belongings, immediately turned his gaze to the blackboard. He was there, naturally, because he had also chosen a math major. After all, math and physics are inseparable. Physics theories require mathematical verification, and many physicists are themselves leading mathematicians. Leonard in The Big Bang Theory was impressed by Sheldon's mathematical prowess. However, it was clear that this equation, solved only by top experts, wasn't something he could solve with a single glance. "Looks interesting," Peggy chuckled beside him. Locke also looked up and took a closer look. At that moment, a classmate reminded Locke, "We still have classes, okay, Peggy, we'll talk tonight," Locke reminded Peggy. Sheldon, too, had come to his senses by then, checking the time on his wrist. As he started walking, he said, "I'm sure I'll be the first one to solve it." "I don't think so," Peggy followed, catching up with Sheldon and smiling. "Don't forget, I'm the youngest genius." This brought back memories of the first time he met Peggy. He'd been completely outmatched, and Peggy was almost a month younger than him. Locke had a lot on his plate. Usually, after dinner and 2 hours of studying, he'd be at his computer typing, reviewing company reports and financial information, making arrangements and issuing orders when necessary. It wasn't until bedtime that Ashley would pull him in to play games. But today, he'd been stuck in his study, working on a single problem, until Tang Wei suddenly called him, saying she was in trouble. What exactly happened? Noticing Tang Wei's panicked tone, Locke didn't bother checking his calculations. He wrote down his results on a piece of scratch paper, gave Peggy a few words, and then packed his things, ready to head to New York. Locke, as they sped back to their New York apartment, Tang Wei saw Locke and hugged him in panic. "You must help Jenny. She's been abducted for over 3 hours, I already know what happened." Locke had already gotten the details over the phone while they were on the way. Jenny was Tang Wei's friend from Columbia University. Her family was quite wealthy, but recently, encouraged by her classmates, she had developed bad habits. Jenny had started buying things that brought happiness from dealers. Busy with work and study, Tang Wei didn't immediately notice the change in his friend. On this rare day, Tang Wei, enjoying a free moment, met Jenny for dinner. Halfway through, Jenny felt a surge of energy and took a small bite. It turned out to be the last of the stock left, so she contacted the dealer. Tang Wei noticed something unusual about Jenny. After they separated, he followed her in his car, spotting her dealing with a trafficker in a dark alley. Tang Wei, a veteran of Las Vegas, immediately understood what Jenny was doing and, just as he was about to turn around and persuade her to go to rehab, he stumbled into a car headlight. The lights illuminated the alley, and the trafficker, already on edge, thought the police had arrived. He grabbed Jenny and ran away, holding her hostage. Tang Wei didn't dare chase them, so he waited until they left to investigate, only to find Jenny's bag. After understanding the situation, Locke received a new mission, heroic rescue. A wealthy young woman has been kidnapped by a drug trafficking gang. Be a hero and rescue her from their den. You'll receive 50 potential points. Locke had originally intended to urge Tang Wei to mind his own business and protect himself, but the mission presented itself, and nothing could stop him from being a hero. "I contacted Jenny's roommate, but she still hasn't returned," She must still be in the hands of the traffickers. Tang Wei grabbed Locke's hand and said, "It's been so long. Jenny must be in danger. This is really troublesome." Locke patted his head and said to Tang Wei, "Give me Jenny's bag, and then stay here and wait for my news. But, okay, leave the rest to me. But since it involves gang traffickers, don't get involved. It'll be very troublesome," Locke emphasized, "especially don't act on your own, as it might alert the enemy." Seeing Locke's calmness, Tang Wei finally felt a little relieved. He handed a bag from the living room to Locke. "This is Jenny's bag. Is everything in there?" Locke asked again. After Tang Wei nodded, he reminded her not to run around before leaving the apartment alone. Back in the car, Locke put on gloves and carefully removed fingerprints from Jenny's bag. Then he cast a tracking spell. Soon, the aura on the bag led him to a location in Queens, New York. But he didn't drive there directly. Instead, he went to a nearby parking lot and parked his car there. After leaving the parking lot and finding a secluded alley, Locke changed into the clothes prepared in the storage space, from top to bottom, even changing his shoes into larger leather boots with increased height. After finding a good location, he took a taxi and arrived nearby. When he saw a bar, he asked the driver to stop. With the hood of his sweatshirt on and a little magic effect, the driver had no chance of remembering his appearance. After paying, he watched the taxi leave. Locke went to the alley behind the bar, climbed up the wall with a strong push of his hands, flipped over, and arrived near the apartment building. At this time, he held a mask with a voice-changing device on his face. Put the unregistered black gun in the storage space on his waist, and then walked into the apartment slowly. Chapter 84. It's a world that depends on appearance. The old green walls of the apartment building had dimmed with age. Locke reached the corner of the third floor and saw a chubby man wearing headphones, his back to him. He approached quietly, and when the man turned, he saw the black muzzle of a gun. The man's face darkened, and he opened his mouth, but ultimately no sound came out, as docile as a rabbit. At Locke's signal, he obediently opened the door next to him a crack and tactfully lay on the ground. Unfortunately, his tact couldn't save him. With a resounding crack of bone, the man's head twisted strangely, and he was dead. Knowing these people were traffickers, Locke struck without mercy. His magical senses suggested Jenny was inside the apartment. Listening carefully, Locke saw the men were unprepared. He pushed the door open with force and entered the room. The draft from outside startled a black man playing a game controller closest to the door. He turned and saw Locke pointing the gun at him. The black man was so nervous he couldn't move. His gaming companion on the other side of the couch glared at him, then froze. At that moment, the woman in a red miniskirt sitting between them screamed in fear. The black man dropped his game controller and reached for a nearby pistol. Pew pew, two silenced gunshots echoed, leaving a bloody hole in the foreheads of the black man who had reached for the gun and the screaming woman. Next, Locke pointed his gun at the other dealer, who hadn't recovered yet, and watched him obediently raise his hands, daring not to move. These dealers weren't good people, and they'd seen blood before, but this scene truly frightened him. The man in front of him, wearing a black hooded sweatshirt and a strange mask, and the sharp and decisive action of the previous shot, sent a chill through his body. At this moment, Locke finally spoke. "Where's the money?" The man froze for a moment, and Locke leaned forward, as if to press the gun against his head. At that moment, the restroom door suddenly opened, and a young white man emerged. Seeing this, he was about to reach for his waist. But with the sound of two silencers, he and the girl were doomed. Locke glanced around and quickly noticed a safe. He carefully observed the keypad for a moment, noticing a few frequently used numbers. He tried them a few times, and after a few attempts, the safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of bills, mostly in $10 and $20 denominations, the common currency used by Americans. $50 denominations were rare. He didn't care about them, but to fake a robbery, he had to take them. He was about to swipe the money into his storage compartment when he suddenly turned and glanced out the window. There stood a young girl wearing a purple wig and a mask that partially covered her face. "Good evening, it seems you got there first." After a moment's thought, Locke stood up and gestured toward the money in the safe. "Go ahead." The young girl was a little confused. Why did this person seem so strange? Then Locke saw the bedroom door of the apartment open. He saw a girl tied to the bed, her mouth taped, her face tear-stained, staring in horror at him as he pushed the door open. He walked over, knocked her unconscious, and carried her out to the living room. "I'll leave her in your care. Take her to a safe place." The money will be your reward." The moment he saw her, Locke recognized her from her attire. She was the heroine from the movie Kick-Ass, the little girl nicknamed Hit Girl. Besides him, there was also Big Daddy, a father bent on avenging his wife and training the little girl to kill traffickers. Thinking of this, Locke looked out the window and, guided by his magical sense, waved at the rooftop of the house across the street. Seeing Locke's action, Big Daddy, also wearing a mask, was taken aback. "This guy has spotted me, and he's not afraid of my gunfire. How's it going?" "Deal," Locke asked again. "Who are you?" The little girl didn't answer, staring at Locke. "You can call me Daredevil." The two of them twitched. "Are you bullying us for not reading comics?" Just then, a mission prompt appeared. "While saving the damsel in distress, you discovered the Avengers. This world is truly cruel to little Lolita. How can you let her endure the pain of losing her last family, and then go alone with her idiotic teammates to eliminate New York's largest drug dealer? Please help Hit Girl and Big Daddy eliminate the dealer and his core team, and let them return to normal life. This mission rewards 500 potential points. Damn, this world really is all about looks. The system can't give such a high reward just because Lolita is cute." Locke couldn't help but grumble inwardly. This was the first time he'd seen a mission reward as high as 500 potential points. But then he thought, this father and daughter's enemy is New York's largest drug dealer. Eliminating him and his core team is much more difficult than Locke's previous missions, so the high reward didn't seem surprising. Thinking of this, Locke chuckled and warned, "You're so unprofessional. This disguise is too easy to see through. Whether it's your voice, face, figure, or appearance, it's all easily exposed with this ever-changing technology." The little girl looked at Locke and had to admit that he was indeed doing a good job of hiding his true appearance. Then Locke continued, "Remember my advice. Current technology can create models from videos or photos. With only half of your face exposed, it's easy to restore your true appearance. The fact that you haven't been exposed yet only means the police haven't really noticed you. Otherwise, if they do, you'll be exposed soon." Both of them were stunned by Locke. While current technology is certainly capable of this, it's far from being widely used. Only criminals of high importance would use it. However, leaving evidence now wouldn't be a good idea. As technology advances and methods become more widespread, they'll have a greater chance of identifying the perpetrators during a data review. "Alright, this girl was probably kidnapped. You'll take her to a safe place later. The money is yours. Also, give me your contact information so we can potentially work together." The other party seemed to consider for a moment before finally leaving a phone number. "I'll contact you." After leaving these words, Locke opened the window of the apartment and jumped down directly from here, disappearing into the night, leaving behind some confused father and daughter. Chapter 85, Remarks on the Release. Thanks to the editor, thanks to all the readers, thanks to the friends who have been rewarding, voting and patiently reading until now. I just received a notice that the book will be on the shelves at noon tomorrow. I hope to get your support. There will be 10 chapters starting at noon on the day of listing and continuing until the evening. If you think the writing is okay, please subscribe to support it. If you have the conditions to subscribe and give me a reward, I will be very grateful. Everyone is clear about the overall environment of the internet. Your subscription is my motivation to continue writing. As an old loser, I dare not ask for too much. According to the subscription situation, it is normal to update twice a day, with an average subscription of 600 as the baseline. For every subscription of more than 300, one chapter will be added. I also hope that readers will give me a chance to update 3 or even 4 times a day. Then there are monthly tickets. For every 200 monthly tickets, one chapter will be added, and there is no upper limit. As long as the monthly ticket is reached, there will be an extra chapter the next day. No cheating. Chapter 86 Suppress Sheldon for a Lifetime. Deftly descending to the bottom of the building, using various supports and debris outside, Locke didn't rush to leave. Instead, he watched as Hit Girl and Big Daddy, carrying a black backpack, drove Jenny to a fast food restaurant in Manhattan and dropped her off. Unlike the older apartment complexes in Queens, this area was well policed, and criminals rarely ventured there. However, Locke waited around the corner for a while, until a patrol officer spotted Jenny and the mission was signaled complete. Only then did he feel relieved. Finally, Locke reviewed the situation and destroyed all the items, including Jenny's bag, to ensure nothing was left behind. Then, he drove back to the apartment. "What's going on?" Tang Wei asked eagerly upon seeing Locke return. "Don't worry, she should be at the police station by now," Locke said. "But there's one thing you need to be aware of. You came back after dinner with Jenny today, so you don't know anything. Do you understand?" If possible, Locke would even consider using magic to make Tang Wei forget what happened that night, but he had never tried that magic before, and the human brain is incredibly delicate, so he could only offer a warning. Hearing that Jenny was alright, Tang Wei breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing Locke's serious expression, he suspected he didn't want to get into trouble, so he agreed. Even though the matter was resolved, Locke didn't return immediately. After all, Tang Wei wasn't completely recovered yet, and he needed his company to comfort him. Before leaving, he'd told Ashley he was heading to New York and would be back early the next morning. Ashley didn't suspect anything, as Locke had done that occasionally before. He simply asked Locke to come back early because he had to take Peggy to school. The next day, before dawn, Locke drove back to Fairview. On the way, he carefully reviewed the math problem, confirming it was correct, and only then did he feel relieved. They arrived in Fairview just in time for breakfast, and then he and Peggy went to school together. While driving, Locke suddenly said to Peggy, "Don't cause any trouble at the donor banquet tonight." "Why do you say that?" Peggy turned to look at Locke. "Because I know that your previous promise in the principal's office doesn't necessarily mean you're truly willing. Sheldon hates these kinds of socializing, and you won't either. So I'm worried you'll pretend to obey or take advantage of the opportunity to cause trouble. There's a good chance that this will happen. You're at your most annoying right now," Peggy said, a little annoyed. Having known Peggy for so long, Locke can see things. Having experienced so much and met so many people, Locke also knows that what a person shows in movies and TV shows is only a fraction of the story. Especially compared to Young Sheldon, Peggy's screen time in the show isn't very long, and she can't fully capture a person's character. While she may appear sweet, she's actually quite mischievous, which is childish. In the original storyline, Peggy's parents divorced, leaving her emotionally traumatized. She matured in the later episodes, but also felt more lonely and vulnerable. Now, thanks to Locke's influence, the Swansons haven't shown any signs of divorce, at least until now. Peggy's personality and psychology will likely be very different at this point. You should understand that university education in the United States is essentially a business, and attracting donations is a crucial component. Compared to my age, you and Sheldon, who started college at just 11, are considered true geniuses and the school's trump cards for fundraising. Given Sheldon's personality, he's bound to cause trouble. If problems arise on your side, donations will undoubtedly be affected. If a business fails, someone must be held responsible. Your age and inherent value provide a natural protection, but there's no need to unnecessarily offend others. That's why I say you're the most annoying right now. You're no different from someone who's always calculating. It's completely pointless. Peggy curled her lips. "Don't forget, I'm a Wall Street vampire," Locke said calmly. "And we're not without benefits either. Don't forget the principal agreed to my terms. You just want to graduate quickly. If you're willing to donate, none of this will be a problem," Peggy pouted. But who would want to spend extra money when there's another way? With Locke's intelligence, the 10 years it normally takes for someone to graduate from college to a doctorate could be reduced to 5. But if all goes well, Locke could even get his doctorate in 3 years. He could simply take the exams and still earn potential points along the way. Reaching his goal sooner, reaching the end of his primary career as a student, he could try a new one and gain even more potential points. Isn't that fantastic? Hearing Locke's words, Peggy's eyes rolled. "So what's in it for me?" The principal didn't agree to the same conditions as Sheldon. If you succeed, you'll be ahead of him. Even if he belatedly requests the same preferential treatment, it won't be easy to get it because it affects the school's business. And don't even mention that you don't want to get your doctorate before him. Young Sheldon and Peggy were now at the same university. They were the same age, both exceptionally talented, and it was inevitable that they wouldn't secretly compete with each other. Locke had long noticed that Sheldon had cut back on much of his time for comics or gaming, and Peggy, likewise, was devoting her usual time to studying. The extent of their involution was astonishing to Locke. Even in terms of the time spent studying alone, both of them had surpassed Locke. After all, they didn't have to juggle writing novels, managing a business, studying magic, and finding time for unexpected tasks, or even maintaining relationships with several girls, like Locke had to. All of this took up a significant amount of time. No matter how talented a person is, there are only 24 hours in a day. With all these distractions, Locke naturally didn't devote as much time to his studies as the two of them. In a few years, Sheldon will have to call you Dr. Swanson, Locke said with a smile. Hearing this, Peggy immediately pictured little Sheldon, his face grimacing, yet he had to stiffly call him Dr. Swanson, while she could just call him Sheldon. She was younger than him, having earned her doctorate before him. Such a comparison would be enough to overwhelm Sheldon for the rest of his life. A sweet smile played on Peggy's face. Guess I really can't mess up the party, then it's settled. Locke actually wanted to see that scene. After all, how could he spend time with Sheldon without trying to give him a few blows? A young tree won't grow straight without pruning. He was doing it for Sheldon's sake. A few more blows during his growth would keep him from getting in trouble in the future. In this world where multiple American TV series are integrated, and The Big Bang Theory is not the only focus, malice is everywhere, and maybe this can prevent him from being accidentally targeted by some evil people. Chapter 87 Donation Dinner. After the morning classes ended, during the lunch break, Locke found a public phone booth and dialed the number from yesterday. Hello. After a moment, the line connected, and Hit Girl's voice came from the other end. Mindy, remember Daredevil? Locke's voice came. Is your father Damon here? You're the mysterious man from yesterday. Mindy immediately realized, how did you know our identities? That's why I said your disguises were amateurish. Maybe you need some help. Locke chuckled. What do you mean? The other party's voice was wary. Let Damon answer the phone, Locke said. After a long moment, another voice called out, who are you? Just call me Daredevil. Locke, unfazed by Damon's defensiveness, said, I can provide you with equipment suitable for camouflage and combat, but you'll need money to buy it. You want money? No. I share the same hobby as you, Locke said casually. I don't think you're fighting those traffickers for the money. I'm not making money from you, but the materials for making the equipment do cost money. The other party hesitated, as if thinking, before saying, what kind of equipment, and how much does it cost? I'll send you the relevant information later. Leave me an email address, and I'll also include it. If you need to contact me, just message me. Anonymous email addresses are common, and with Locke's specially programmed software, there's no need to worry about revealing your identity. Okay, Damon agreed. Happy business then. Locke hung up. He didn't immediately offer to help Damon and his daughter eliminate the traffickers' leader. After all, such a task was too dangerous, and Damon and his daughter would be extremely wary of someone who suddenly appeared. Therefore, he planned to start as an equipment supplier, then look for opportunities to collaborate with a few small targets, slowly building trust. New York was rife with gangs, and opportunities for shared monster hunting were rare. Locke also needed time to prepare his equipment. Normally, Locke used magical protective and early warning equipment, compact, practical, and easy to carry at all times. This time, the equipment he was preparing for Damon and his daughter couldn't be magical. He planned something more high-tech. He wanted custom-made bulletproof armor, gadgets for concealing one's whereabouts and climbing walls, and so on. He even planned to use magic to enhance its effects during the manufacturing process. Of course, this wasn't about adding magic, but rather magical processing. For example, the custom-made body armor and armor could be crafted by directly manipulating metal atoms or other materials through magical synthesis, modifying their appearance and so on. This eliminated the need for specialized processing equipment while achieving superior results. Locke's design for the innermost layer of the body armor was designed to be extremely tough, incorporating a special alloy he had synthesized using magic. It's expensive and difficult to manufacture, requiring only small batches of artificial synthesis. When worn, it resembles a thin, straight jacket. While lightweight, it offers exceptional protection, far surpassing typical protective clothing on the market. While the cost is certainly high, with the materials alone costing over $100,000, Locke believes the effectiveness is exceptional and well worth the money. While a hit from a powerful weapon would be fatal with ordinary body armor, wearing this type of vest reduces a fatal injury to a minor one, offering excellent value for money. Furthermore, it's specially designed with devices that add bulletproof plates to vital areas, easily stopping rifle bullets. Even the custom-made masks offer some protection, along with accompanying combat aids. They're perfect for the Damons and their daughters, who frequently engage in dangerous combat. Locke had already pre-ordered the necessary materials through special channels, though the production process took some effort. After the afternoon classes concluded, Locke and Peggy didn't drive home as usual. Instead, they stopped by Peggy's dorm to rest and prepare for the donor dinner that evening. They'd already brought their formal attire, they just needed to wear them before leaving. Peggy continued calculating with her paper. Seeing that Locke wasn't following suit, she asked, "Did you solve Dr. Gates' math problem?" "Yes. I did a final check in my free time during the day and told Dr. Gates." Locke asked, "How are you?" Peggy pouted and said, "Almost there. I'm sure I'll have it solved by tomorrow at the latest." "Yeah," Locke nodded calmly, offering no words of encouragement, as this might actually be a boost for Peggy. Most of Princeton University's donors are alumni, or their descendants who are potential alumni. Others are wealthy individuals who want to make charitable donations. Everyone says it's to provide a better educational environment or for the benefit of science, but everyone knows the real story. The dinner was a typical buffet. Locke and Peggy arrived at the banquet hall on time. The president, who greeted them at the entrance, took the time to explain everything. If the university were a zoo, Sheldon and Peggy would be the unicorns the university wanted to showcase to its donors. Locke might be a genius, but his age wasn't an advantage. His orphanage limited his rapid advancement, naturally making him inferior in the eyes of those who didn't know the truth. Compared to the three of them, the others were mere ostriches. The school wouldn't give them up if given the choice. Besides Locke, Peggy, and Sheldon, the school also had leading professors from various disciplines present. Perhaps some donors truly had a glimmer of interest in science, or perhaps found genius attractive, and these individuals could also attract donations. The time arrived, and the principal made a brief speech, signaling the official start of the banquet. She then escorted several major donors to meet Locke and Peggy. Of course, Sheldon and Beverly, who was with him, did the same. Everyone at the banquet was dressed in suits and formal attire. Locke, holding Peggy, chatted with a man, most of the time doing the talking, with Peggy occasionally interjecting, her face adorned with a typical childish, sweet smile. Among the crowd stood a beautiful blonde who looked like she had stepped out of a painting. She wore an elegant dress, her blonde hair tied up in a bun, revealing her slender, fair neck. Her face was stunning, and her aura was commanding. Unlike the other beauties who seemed like mere ornaments around men, she half raised a glass of champagne, a smile on her lips. With a calm and confident demeanor, she scanned the gathering. Her gaze lingered on Locke for a moment, then she approached him with the champagne. "Deborah Yu Ying," the woman introduced herself. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Locke Lee." American names are common, and many people often choose to name their children after elders, close friends, or even celebrities. But surnames are different. The Yu Ying family embodies a family that no American can ignore. This family has been passed down for 5 generations, initially centered around the energy industry and, in recent years, has expanded into banking and finance. Locke had naturally gathered information on these leading American families and quickly matched the beauty before him with the information he had in mind. She was the 5th generation of the Yu Ying family, and one of the most prominent young members of the family. "Hello, Ms. Yu Ying," Locke said politely, holding a drink. Peggy studied Deborah, her brows furrowed slightly, a hint of aggression in her eyes resenting her. Locke, too, sensed the ambition hidden in the eyes of this strikingly beautiful woman, in her early 20s, and so remained polite yet distant in the ensuing conversation. A powerful family, with ambitious descendants, presented a nuisance to Locke. Even if the girl's aesthetics met his standards, he would respond politely. Families like these often harbored decades of grievances and hatred, and Locke was unwilling to be drawn into such a quagmire. Once a girl of this background was involved, it would be difficult to escape. He desired a free, unrestrained life, not the complexities of relationships back home, trapped in these inescapable constraints. Chapter 88 I don't really like Zhang Zi. After a brief chat, Deborah discovered that Locke's usual all-conquering good looks didn't seem to have much of an effect on him. While his attitude appeared warm, it actually held a certain distance. This contradicted the information she had gathered previously. Locke Lee had been surrounded by beautiful women since high school, and now he had several, even with potential future prospects. The fact that such a man treated her with such an attitude made her feel uneasy and compelled to conquer him. Fortunately, these thoughts didn't distract her from the main topic. Turning the topic to Sky Fund, she suddenly said, "Your fund's financial projects seem quite different from those of other fund companies. I admire your investment approach, but if I were an investor, I'd prefer dividends over fixed returns. Furthermore, I've carefully reviewed your fund's project information, and the investment contract doesn't clearly stipulate how your company will utilize investor funds or which investment directions it will choose." Hearing this, Locke realized that the other party was targeting Sky Fund, or rather, his ability to make money. Fortunately, he had been prepared for similar topics and calmly delivered his response. "Choosing fixed income is also for the benefit of investors. You should know that apart from us, no other fund on Wall Street explicitly promises a guaranteed minimum return plus a fixed return. Even our management fees are lower than the industry average. To do this, we bear enormous risks. This is our responsibility at Sky Fund. We even need to cover the cost ourselves when investment returns are too low. Everyone in the industry knows that the average return on Wall Street is lower than the fixed return we promise. Furthermore, investing always involves gains and losses. We can only guarantee that the overall long-term return will meet expectations. If the majority of dividends are distributed to investors when returns are high, and then when returns fall or even losses occur, we could even go bankrupt to ensure the promised capital preservation, and investors would suffer losses as well. Therefore, I believe that a guaranteed minimum return plus a fixed return is the best option for both parties. As for the investment direction mentioned by Ms. Yu Ying, that involves commercial confidentiality. Sky Fund's investment model was meticulously designed by me, and it took tremendous effort. Therefore, I don't want a contract to specify a specific investment direction, as this would risk leaking the fruits of my hard work. I believe those willing to invest will understand this." This statement sounded reasonable and well-reasoned, but Deborah disagreed. She suspected that the man before her was confident he could earn excessive profits with investors' money. But this was just her speculation. Throughout Wall Street's history, there have been instances of individuals seizing opportunities and reaping multifold returns. However, such opportunities only occur once every few or even decades, making them impossible to use as a benchmark. Under normal circumstances, as Locke had stated, even a well-managed fund company's average return would hardly exceed Locke's promised fixed income, let alone a guaranteed minimum. While Deborah's suspicions were shared, rationally speaking, Locke's project was a real bargain. However, Deborah was stubborn. Having gathered information about Locke and interacted with him, she instinctively believed he could reap excessive returns. She wanted a piece of the action, asking for a share of the profits, but Locke would never agree to such a condition. He wanted to use other people's money to make money for himself, not to be a tool for others to make money. So after a few more words, Locke simply apologized and pulled Peggy aside to continue the conversation with the others. Sensing Deborah's final glance, he decided to minimize the flow of Sky Fund's funds to banks with close ties to the Yu Ying family and to increase investment in the banking industry. "You're not talking about science at all. You don't understand science at all. I only asked you here because I need your money." A sudden high voice made the banquet hall suddenly quiet, and everyone looked at the person who spoke. After little Sheldon finished speaking as if to vent his anger, he realized that everyone was looking at him, so he simply continued, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm telling the truth. What you just said." Just as he said this, little Sheldon's mouth was covered by the principal, who rushed over. With a slight embarrassment, the principal said, "I'm sorry everyone, our little genius doesn't seem to have had enough rest and is feeling a little unwell. I'd better take him back to rest first." "Sure enough, he's here." "You guessed right," Peggy whispered in Locke's ear. "Sheldon's probably going to be in trouble. He really never disappoints." Locke was not surprised. More than 10 years later, when Sheldon did the same thing at Qualtech, he was unwilling to shake hands with a donor with disdain, and said confidently, "Give us your money." The principal had someone take little Sheldon away and told him not to speak again. Then he walked up to the donor with some trepidation. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Tower." "Sheldon, it doesn't matter. I appreciate the little genius's straightforwardness, and I'm willing to provide the school with a donation that's 20% higher than last year." The next moment, everyone applauded, praising Mr. Toll's broad-mindedness. This was a pleasant surprise for the school. Peggy couldn't help but wonder, will he even do that? Mr. Toll donated, and even increased the amount, because he's a smart man, not because he truly appreciates Sheldon's honesty, Locke said, gesturing around. Peggy quickly realized that, given Mr. Toll's status, competing with young Sheldon would only put him at a disadvantage. It would be better to do so with the prestige and honor he would gain. After some twists and turns, the donor banquet returned to normal, and everyone seemed to have forgotten the previous incident, continuing their lively conversation and laughter. As for what Mr. Toll might have thought privately, that was beyond anyone's control. To put it bluntly, young Sheldon simply had the advantage of age. Over a decade later, at Caltech, Sheldon, using the same harsh attitude, directly demanded that those people hand over their money, his behavior no different from the one he was using now. The Big Bang Theory doesn't explain the donor's subsequent attitudes, but the school's decision to ban him from similar activities suggests something's up. That's still a good thing, because if a donor holds a grudge against Sheldon for his attitude, it would be easy for them to deal with him, a man who can even chase a chicken. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89. Either go to cry or go to the toilet. The party didn't last long. Locke had just returned to Fairview and parked his car in the garage when he saw a woman visiting. It was Mr. Solis's wife, Gabrielle. "Hello, Mrs. Solis," Locke asked, closing the garage door. "What can I do for you?" Well, our family's been through some hardship lately. Mr. Solis's mother was hit by a car and is in the hospital, and Mr. Solis has been taken into custody by the FBI. Gabrielle's tone was a touch awkward. "It's nothing. I'm sure Mr. Solis will return home sooner or later," Locke reassured her. "I believe so, but since Mr. Solis is incarcerated, our family's finances have been affected. I heard from Susan that you're good at math and helped her get a bigger tax refund." Gabrielle hesitantly stated her purpose. Due to certain investigations and Mr. Solis's investigation, the family has lost their income. With the high costs of hiring a lawyer and posting bail, she needed to make it all work on her own. Mr. Solis earned a lot, but also spent a lot. Gabrielle's favorite thing to do was use Mr. Solis's credit card to swipe at luxury goods counters in the mall. Their family had limited savings, and with repeated problems, her housewife friends offered little help, leaving Gabrielle to fend for herself. Fortunately, Susan offered her a suggestion: ask Locke for help. She also mentioned a story about how Locke had helped her secure a substantial tax refund. She had previously been able to ignore it, but now, with a series of family tragedies posing a serious financial crisis, she had no choice but to ask Locke for help in an audit to see if she could minimize expenses. Mr. Solis is my friend, and I'd really like to help him. Locke thought for a moment and said, "I can't do much about the lawsuit, but I can help you sort out your family's finances. I hope that will make a difference." Mr. Solis's actions essentially involved exploiting the labor force of a third-world country. For this reason, Locke wouldn't exonerate Mr. Solis, as he could use money and connections to get him out. Besides, he could help sort out their family's finances, which wouldn't take much time anyway. "That's great, thank you very much," Gabrielle said happily. "I just got home and need to sort things out. Bring all the bills and other things over later, make sure there's nothing I've forgotten, and I'll help you check." "Okay, I'll go get them ready." Gabrielle happily ran home. Back home, Peggy went back to the study to continue working on the math problems Professor Gate had assigned her. Locke helped Gabrielle, who was carrying a pile of bills, sort out the finances. Gabrielle quickly left with the items and the clues Locke had compiled, while Locke returned to the study. "Did you figure it out?" Locke knew from Peggy's expression. "Yes," Peggy nodded, then gave a number that matched Locke's. "Let me see your paper," Locke said. "Sure, let me see yours too." Peggy handed her paper to Locke, then went to Locke's desk and took his. "Your method is different from mine, but it seems simpler," Peggy said after reviewing it. "It was just a flash of inspiration," Locke said calmly. "I wonder how Sheldon's progressing." "Don't worry, as soon as he solves it, he'll be eager to call and announce it," Peggy said confidently. "Don't you want to tell him you've solved it? I'm only the second one to solve it anyway. As long as I'm not the first, what difference does it make whether I tell him or not?" Over an hour later, at Dr. Hofstadter's house. "I solved it. I'm the smartest person in the world," little Sheldon happily jumped out of his chair, announcing with joy. "Excellent," Beverly heard, immediately coming over to Sheldon and praising him. "Well done." Leonard, who had never heard such praise from Sheldon before, looked aggrieved. "I'm going to call Peggy and tell her I'm the smartest person," Sheldon said after a moment of joy, going to the phone. As soon as the call was connected, little Sheldon couldn't help but raise his chin. "Peggy, let me tell you something. I have solved Dr. Gates' problem," So, Peggy replied with a somewhat nonchalant tone. Little Sheldon choked for a moment, then emphasized, I said I solved it. I was the first one, so I am the smartest. Really? Peggy said a number in a flat tone, which immediately made Sheldon stunned. You solved it too. Sheldon hoped that he had misheard. Just 76 minutes ago? Peggy scoffed. And Locke solved it even earlier. What? Little Sheldon exclaimed. I don't believe it. You're lying to me. I know you called me because you want to take first place, Peggy said calmly. But unfortunately, Locke was the first to solve it. He's already told Dr. Gates, but you don't know yet. Little Sheldon was stunned. Impossible. How could this be possible? He couldn't accept the gap. Both Locke and Peggy had solved it before him. Doesn't it mean that, in a field like mathematics, which is purely a test of IQ, he's the last of the three? No, he couldn't help but shout out at the thought. It seems things aren't turning out the way some people expected, Leonard, who had been secretly eavesdropping, said slowly. The next moment, little Sheldon's face twitched, and he hung up the phone, dashing off to the bathroom. He's either crying or going to the bathroom, Peggy said with a look of certainty after hanging up. Locke chuckled. Peggy really understood Sheldon, or rather, Sheldon was too easy to see through. Before, Peggy, and little Sheldon were not on the same school, so the impact was not obvious. But since they were in the same university, the situation has changed. The courses that the three of them signed up for were highly overlapping, and they could be said to see each other every day at school. Not only was he suppressed by Locke, but there was also a girl of the same age who was slightly smarter than him, which repeatedly hit little Sheldon's pride and confidence. His original self-confidence was now shaky and about to collapse. If little Sheldon was not only 11 years old and at the age of strong plasticity, his psychology would probably be directly distorted. Chapter 90 I don't believe in your ability to hide your identity. Honey, there's an art auction in New York tonight. Do you want to come with me? Locke said to Ashley after dinner on Friday morning. A New York auction. Ashley was stunned, then said, I want to go. She loved these kinds of events, the luxurious, upper-class atmosphere that almost every girl her age couldn't resist. Then, a thought struck her, by the way, is Alice coming too? She'll be there, but not with us. She'll be with her classmate Jenny, Locke replied. Ever since their last escape, Tang Wei felt he should pay more attention to his best friend and persuade her to stay away from harmful things. Fortunately, Jenny was still quite frightened by her experience that night, and since she was just starting out and using ordinary sandwiches, she could still make it if she put her mind to it. This auction was held by New York's largest auction house, and several of the items were anonymously provided by Locke through an overseas account. After the auction, he also arranged to trade with Damon and his daughter, so there was still a lot to do. Peggy, on the other hand, wasn't interested in auctions or anything like that, nor was she in the mood to go to New York this weekend. She would stay in Fairview, with Susan taking care of her. The evening auction was scheduled for the Waldorf Astoria. Ashley had fallen in love with New York since her first visit. Manhattan's skyscrapers stood side by side, and the night view was practically unrivaled in this era. She had once urged Locke to buy a rooftop villa with a lawn and a swimming pool, but Locke wasn't very interested. A house wasn't very practical for Locke right now. After all, he wouldn't be living in New York permanently for the next 3 years. For the time being, the rented hotel apartment would suffice. Arriving at the Waldorf that evening, before the auction officially began, the staff quickly ushered him to the cocktail lounge adjacent to the auction hall. The latest lot details had been distributed early to potential clients, and Locke also received a copy. The auction company held this event annually, and this time, they offered over 600 lots, encompassing art from around the world, from Japanese samurai armor to exquisite Egyptian stone carvings. It was a truly remarkable achievement for the company, worthy of being the world's largest. Locke offered 13 items. Due to the sheer number of items, the auction couldn't be completed overnight, so it was split over 4 days. Locke also saw antiques from the East, including enamel porcelain from the Qing dynasty, a large Ming dynasty underglaze red plate, and a Longquan Celadon jade-shaped vase from the Hongwu period of the Ming dynasty. All were reasonably priced. Asian collections were niche items in the 1990s, and prices weren't high, primarily because the market wasn't yet affluent, and buyers' finances were limited. Upon first seeing the description and the reserve price, Locke felt tempted to buy one, but quickly gave up. He had been interested in antiques in a previous life, But like many others, it was primarily driven by price, his desire to buy them driven by the hope that they would be valuable in the future. A true enthusiast appreciates the ancient art in the sense of time, but Locke lacked that mindset, so he was never a true collector and never would become one. As for collecting and bringing back to the East, Locke felt it would be more practical to invest in the country and promote its development. Only when a country truly develops can the value of these cultural artifacts truly shine. There were quite a few early arrivals, and Locke immediately spotted Martin Channing, whom he had met several times before, accompanied by a teenage girl. "Good evening, Locke," Martin Channing said, bringing the girl with him. "Good evening, Mr. Channing." Locke shook his hand and then looked at the girl beside Martin Channing. "This is my daughter, Caroline. She attends a private high school in Manhattan." "Hello, Miss Channing," Locke nodded. Looking at the princess-like Caroline before him, who could have imagined her future? "Hello, Mr. Locke, I really enjoy your books." Caroline smiled politely. "It's my honor." He could still hear the politeness. Most readers of Arcane Throne were male, with relatively few female readers. Caroline didn't look like someone who'd enjoy reading that kind of novel. After a polite chat, they each parted ways. Ever since Locke acquired Sky Fund, Martin Channing had stopped promoting his fund to him, his enthusiasm having waned considerably. "Alice, why are you here just now?" A moment later, Ashley spotted Tang Wei and Miss Jenny, who was with her. Seeing Jenny again, Locke was surprised to find her surprisingly beautiful. It was unavoidable. The last time he saw Jenny, her mouth was taped shut, her face was stained with tears and snot, and there were scars from a slap. Her hair was disheveled, making it hard to believe she was the same Jenny now. Now, taking a closer look, he discovered she had Vivian Lee's cat-like eyes. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also tall, with fair skin. Her face looked innocent, yet she exuded a languid charm. "Are you Locke?" Jenny, of course, didn't recognize Locke as the daredevil who had appeared that night. While she was briefly struck by his charisma, she quickly looked at him with a look of a scumbag. He already had Alice, yet he was still so brazenly accompanied by a blonde beauty. He didn't know what possessed Alice. He tried to persuade her to leave Locke, but to no avail. Jenny, Tang Wei, sensing her bestie's hostility toward Locke, tugged at her arm. Locke shrugged, unconcerned. High charm doesn't mean invincibility. Jenny, while beautiful, isn't easy to please, and there's no need for him to curry favor with her. The auction wasn't much to write home about. He ended up spending $50,000 on a Tiffany necklace and a pair of earrings, which he intended to give to Ashley and Tang Wei. Tonight, an item Locke had retrieved from the treasure trove sold for $5.7 million, with Locke even bidding against it. After the auction, Locke first took Ashley and Tang Wei back to their New York hotel apartment, then changed and headed to an abandoned factory in the suburbs. These abandoned factories are common in the suburbs surrounding major American cities, where few people visit. They aren't obvious now, but they'll become more common in the future. The population is already small, and with the passage of time, more and more factories are failing, hollowing out the manufacturing industry. Former workers are either returning to their hometowns or concentrating in the city center. After observing the surroundings and confirming that no one was around, and setting up the sensing magic, Locke contacted Damon and his daughter, and at the same time, he took the prepared equipment from the storage space. About 10 minutes later, Damon and his daughter appeared near the abandoned factory. "This is the equipment prepared for you," Locke pointed to the two boxes in front of him. Damon and his daughter looked at Locke, who was wrapped in a black coat and still wearing a mask. Mindy couldn't help but complain, "You are really cautious. Are you worried that we will know your identity? Any secret is no longer a secret once it is known to another person. I may trust you not to spread rumors, but I don't trust your ability to hide your identity." Chapter 91 Fighting in the Dark. Faced with Locke's questioning, Damon and his daughter felt somewhat helpless. They still had no idea who this self-proclaimed daredevil was, not even whether he was a man or a woman, yet he had thoroughly investigated them. They could only accept his assessment with disapproval. Locke said nothing more, simply opening the box and, while explaining the contents, handing them to Damon and his daughter for inspection. Seeing no problem, Damon handed a black bag to Locke. "This is the agreed-upon $200,000, Locke nodded, not counting the items, but tossing them aside before suddenly saying, "It looks like you're being followed." "Followed? Impossible," Damon denied with absolute certainty. 2 large trucks and 3 cars, "They're already outside the factory gates," Locke said. "Now there's work." As he spoke, Locke walked outside, quickly disappearing into the darkness. "Is he telling the truth?" Damon asked. "Daredevil shouldn't have to lie." "Perhaps we can try out the new gear." Mindy patted her chest. Her newly changed combat uniform offered both ease of movement and enhanced protection, and she was eager to try it out. Using magical intuition and night vision, Locke quickly identified the 38 targets, most of whom were wearing tactical vests and equipped with automatic weapons. A few men, dressed in suits, emerged from a sedan. One of them caught Locke's attention, a man with a slicked back hair and a black shirt and black slacks. His expression was remarkably stern. Surveying the group, Locke sent another message to Damon and his daughter, then folded his black coat, revealing a suit of pure black armor. While preparing equipment for Damon and his daughter, Locke also made a set for himself. Donning his helmet, Locke grabbed a rifle, and as the men jockeyed for position, preparing to surround the factory, he took aim. Just as Locke aimed his gun at the slicked-back man, whom he considered the most threatening, the man ducked without hesitation, ducking into the shadow of the sedan. Bang, 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 a series of crisp gunshots seemed to awaken the abandoned factory. The traffickers opened fire at the spot where they believed an ambush was taking place. The slick-back-haired man proved to be the most troublesome, leaving Locke's bullets missing. The next moment, Locke quickly moved away from his firing position. 2 more shots rang out, and 2 more bullets flew past. "He's truly an expert," Locke thought to himself. Compared to the other easily dispatched thugs, the slick-back-haired man was truly formidable. Following the information he received through his magic, Locke began to move through the abandoned factory. His senses were far sharper than those of ordinary people, and with the help of his magic, the enemy's movements were a mystery to him. Locke didn't rush to eliminate the gunman. Instead, he used his superior physical strength and understanding of the surroundings to disrupt the slick-back-haired man's judgment. Bang! The next moment, a gunshot rang out. The slick-back-haired man, who had just darted around a corner, suddenly reversed his forward charge and retreated rapidly. At the same time, a bullet hole appeared in front of him. The slick-backed man sneered, raised his pistol, swung his arm, and pulled the trigger, sending the bullet scattering in a strange arc. He dodged to the side, the bullet grazing Locke, startling him. Based on the angle, this guy couldn't possibly have shot here. Having quickly dodged the bullet, Locke reviewed the opponent's position and made his assessment. During his meditations on the battle, Locke had long since incorporated mathematical calculations into his combat, but the impact of that bullet was truly unexpected. Meanwhile, the slick-backed man's expression grimaced, as he realized his opponent was incredibly formidable. Both men began moving rapidly, periodically pulling the trigger, aiming for each other's vital points, attempting to hit them. Elsewhere, Damon and his daughter had already donned their newly acquired equipment, undeterred by the sudden appearance of these traffickers. They were no ordinary men, veterans of battle, and they didn't rush out, instead observing the situation. They were quite curious about the man calling himself Daredevil. Their true identity and strength were what they wanted to know. Seeing that Locke had attracted all the enemy's attention, the father and daughter found a suitable position and quietly observed the movements outside. They were ready to provide support if Locke fell into a disadvantage. There were no lights around, and both Locke and the man with the slicked back hair were dressed in black. Only under the more conspicuous moonlight could the difference between Locke's outfit and the man's suit be clearly visible. Both men moved with incredible speed, like ghosts, darting through the debris and buildings of the abandoned factory. Screams echoed constantly, as those who had overestimated their own strength and tried to intervene in the fight fell swiftly after the gunfire. The father and daughter soon realized that both sides were superior in strength. If they entered such a fight, even the slightest mistake would result in their death. Their movements became increasingly faster, their murderous intent growing stronger. Locke gradually became accustomed to the enemy's unpredictable trajectory and adjusted his calculations. He had attempted to use magic to attack or distract the opponent, but such spells were no faster than pulling the trigger. With both sides on edge, Locke perfectly demonstrated his elite firearms mastery, honed during meditation battles. As for the other traffickers and predators, they were periodically targeted during the clash. Each of them hid behind cover, and upon noticing the sudden appearance of a figure, they responded with a flurry of gunfire, achieving nothing but added visual and auditory stunts to the battle. They could even be used by both sides, becoming tools to disrupt their opponent's judgment. As the duel dragged on, The slicked-back-haired man began to feel increasingly frustrated, realizing that his opponent had, in a matter of moments, adapted to his curved trajectory. Previously, he had relied on his incredible marksmanship and explosive stamina to hold his own. But now, his attacks were no longer able to provide the element of surprise, and he was constantly suppressed by Locke, his range of movement shrinking. Another crucial point was that Locke's ammunition seemed limitless. Even after firing so many shots, he showed no sign of saving. But his pistol's magazine and spare magazine were both empty, leaving him with no choice but to grab a popular submachine gun to deal with the situation. Unlike his opponent, Locke was relaxed at this moment, not even anxious to finish him off, eager to see what other tricks he had in store. Sensing the situation was becoming increasingly dire, a cold glint flashed in the man's slicked back hair, and he gave the order, "Use all equipment, indiscriminate attack." The next moment, gunfire erupted all around. The dozen or so remaining traffickers and robbers began indiscriminately firing at any suspicious targets, some even pulling out their belts and throwing them randomly. This chaotic, battlefield-like situation made Locke cautious. The most terrifying thing on the battlefield was the unpredictable appearance of stray bullets, and the situation was also unfolding around him. Locke's current computer system was not capable of quickly processing such a large-scale and rapidly changing battlefield information. Chapter 92 New Mission. Faced with the enemy's sudden display of frenzy, Locke chose to proceed with caution. Even with his armor, a stray bullet or grenade fragment could easily cause him to misalign his movements and misstep, potentially giving the enemy an opportunity. Locke wasn't worried about his own life, but the prospect of being in disarray was unavoidable, unbecoming of his impeccable image. He planned to carefully dispatch the gunman first, then deal with the slicked back-haired man. Unexpectedly, the slicked back-haired man darted into a car, started it, and sped away, followed by two men in suits. Chasing him down amidst the distractions of the traffickers was impossible, so Locke had to quickly dispatch the gunman. By the time he reached the remaining car, the two had already vanished into the darkness. Thinking he had victory, he let his opponent escape, leaving Locke's face etched with dismay. These guys truly lacked the spirit to fight to the bitter end. Locke internally complained as he reunited with the Damons. Think about it, how did you get targeted? The slicked back hair and arcing trajectory made Locke already certain of their identities. He was quite familiar with the movie Wanted. He wanted to know how the Damons ended up at the textile factory. That scene wasn't even in the plot of Kick-Ass. If they were targeted by the factory, their revenge might have ended there. Damon had just observed the fight and knew that neither Locke nor the slicked back-haired man were a match for them. After careful consideration, he said, "Perhaps the previous deal took too long. That place is a key base for Frank Amick, and they accidentally sent out a call for help." Frank Amick was the enemy of the Damons and their daughter, and currently the largest trafficker in New York. Eliminating his gang wasn't easy. Damon began by eliminating the scattered gangs, raising funds, and gathering intelligence. After extensive investigations and the identification of Amick's main strongholds, coupled with the need to raise funds, the Damons and their daughters launched a series of attacks. In the past week, they've successfully taken down 3 key Amick strongholds, perhaps alerting Amick. As for the textile factory, Locke suspected Amick had paid for it. After all, as New York's largest businessman, Amick had plenty of money. As for the so-called destiny of the loom, Locke considered it pure nonsense. Where would such a loom have come from in Europe over 1,000 years ago? It's likely just a gimmick, a deception to fool fools. Anyone who truly understands would understand. Otherwise, when Sloane found the male protagonist, how could the father they were talking about, the man with the slicked back hair, have such a large inheritance? After all, simply working for destiny wouldn't yield such a lucrative reward. Ding, new mission generated, false destiny. The textile factory fabricates a false destiny to prevent a host from enforcing justice. Breaking destiny and destroying the textile factory is imperative. Reward: 800 potential points. That's a big job. The textile factory is worth more than Amick, Locke thought to himself. As expected, the more difficult the mission, the greater the reward. It seems your previous actions have heightened Amick's vigilance. That assassin in the suit just now is no simple matter. You should play it safe for now and wait until the storm has died down before taking action. Locke suggested that Damon and his daughter remain silent for a while he first attempts to eliminate the textile factory. After all, those top assassins are more than they can handle. Damon seemed reluctant and didn't agree immediately. Locke continued, "You've been too active lately. Emmett is on guard, so it's hard to act. But he can't remain on high alert all the time. He has to make deals. Keep an eye on him for now, and when we find an opportunity, take him out directly. That's the most cost-effective." "Okay, you're right." Let's pause for a while. Thinking of the slicked back hair, Damon finally agreed. "Well, when you feel ready, you can contact me and we'll strike together then." "You want to take on Emmett too," Damon said. "He's the biggest trafficker in New York, a big target." With that, Locke left. "Where have you been?" Ashley couldn't help but ask after Locke had packed up and returned to their rented hotel apartment. "Business." Two friends wanted a small favor. Locke didn't elaborate much. There were things Ashley and Tang Wei didn't need to know. Okay, Ashley didn't press the issue. Neither she nor Tang Wei would have imagined that a super-rich man would personally take matters into his own hands. The next morning, Locke first walked Tang Wei back to Monica's apartment, but at the dinner table, Monica was immediately surprised. "What? Alice is moving out?" Monica couldn't help but ask. "Why? I want her to move in with me," Locke said confidently. "It's inconvenient here." After staring at Locke for a moment, Monica finally nodded. Okay, moving in with her boyfriend was such a legitimate reason that even Monica couldn't refuse. For Locke, it was the perfect time for things to fall into place. Last night, he experienced a double dose of happiness for the first time. Previously, he'd kept Ashley and Tang Wei apart, worried they might clash. But now that they'd had their first encounter, he could imagine countless more. Naturally, keeping them together longer would give them more opportunities. Seeing Monica seem a little disappointed, Tang Wei reassured her, "Don't worry, I'm not moving in right away. Locke plans to find a larger apartment nearby, so it'll take a while. And even if I do move in, it won't be far away. I'll come to your place often for breakfast." The area was indeed convenient for Tang Wei's school and work, so Locke planned to find a larger apartment nearby and return the hotel apartment he'd rented. "You can even order food. I can make it for you." Monica's heart brightened at this. Joey would probably be jealous if he heard that, Locke joked. As he spoke, Joey pushed open the door and walked in, calling out, "Food, give me food." "Hi," Monica smiled, bringing out the breakfast she'd prepared. Ross, looking beaming, walked in. "What's going on? Have you encountered anything happy recently?" Locke glanced at Ross and asked. "Carol seems to want to get back together with him." Monica directly revealed the mystery. "I remember they were separated for a while and were about to get a divorce." "That's right, but Carol contacted me recently and said that she thought about our 7-year relationship and was a little hesitant, so she asked me to meet," Ross said with a smile. "Judging from your appearance, you must have had a great time yesterday," Joey said with the tone of an experienced person. "That's right, after all, Susan is just a woman. In some aspects, no man can compare to her," Ross said proudly. "Congratulations, Ross," Tang Wei congratulated him from the side. "I was saying that Carol and I." Ross was in a good mood and ate a little more. Looking at Ross at this time, Locke smiled but said nothing. Chapter 93 Enemy of Destiny. At 11 o'clock in the evening, completely dark, Locke drove to a suburb in northwest New York. Across the Hackensack River, he observed from afar a complex of old, castle-like buildings. Parking in the distance, Locke quietly approached, taking in the sign for the textile factory at the gate and the faintly visible guards. He chuckled, "Looks like I've found the right place." He was now invisible, so he first surveyed the factory's exterior before trotting under the guards' noses and entering the building. The looms still roared within, and workers could be seen moving raw materials and finished products. This textile factory was more than just a sign. It was well known in the New York area, producing knitwear said to have originated in Europe 1,000 years ago. With stringent production and quality standards, prices were high, and many of the upper class favored it. The textile industry had a promising future, but it was a pity that it chose to embrace violence. Carefully avoiding the busy workers, these were low-level assassins. Besides their textile work, they also trained here daily and performed odd jobs for other assassins when needed. Many high-ranking assassins worked here as textile workers before becoming high-ranking assassins. Locke passed through the factory building and reached the second floor. He approached a door and suddenly took a few steps back. The next moment, the door opened, and Locke saw an elderly black man emerge, heading towards the passageway behind the building. Locke recognized him immediately, Sloan, the current head of the textile factory. He didn't rush to follow Sloane, nor did he show any killing intent. He had been a top assassin in his youth. While his skills might have diminished with age, his keen senses and intuition, honed over the years, were not easily deceived. Watching Sloane disappear, Locke entered the room he had left. The circular room was surrounded by bookshelves piled with various paper books and documents. This must have been Sloane's regular office. Locke searched the room, but as expected, he didn't find the information he sought. Clearly, the old fox was quite cautious. The textile factory claimed to have a millennium of heritage, perhaps just a gimmick. However, according to the information Locke had found, it had been in existence for over 50 years. In Locke's view, its greatest value lay in the medicinal baths, made from unknown ingredients, as depicted in the film. These baths, with their unknown ingredients, could rapidly heal. Even common injuries could be largely healed within a few hours. Locke suspected the raw materials for these baths were extremely valuable. Many of the textile workers he had just seen outside bore visible scars, clearly not something they could afford. Even if they couldn't be mass-produced, the baths were still valuable, serving as life-saving tools in times of need. Furthermore, there were arc shooting techniques and methods for bursting physical energy. Clearly, Locke hadn't found any of these here. However, he wasn't in a rush, he would just keep searching. If the bath formula proved elusive, he could find another solution. Simply finding the source of the preparation would surely lead to the finished product. Next, he could use testing equipment to analyze the composition of the drug. There was always a way to obtain the formula. However, since the medicinal bath was so valuable, the quantity of the finished product would be strictly controlled. Taking it away would easily alert the enemy. Locke had originally intended to use it as a last resort. But he didn't have that much time. He had to go back to school on Monday. While he could take time off, it wasn't necessary. So Locke decided to take a risk. He found the medicinal bath. It was actually quite easy to find, given the large area and the obvious location of the large pool. After searching around, Locke found the finished medicinal bath. He immediately stored the finished products in the storage area and arranged them, causing a small commotion. "Who is it?" Moments later, a killer rushed in with a gun. But the place was empty, with only one window open. Then, people came running in, including Sloane. Those who could stand here were all high-ranking assassins from the textile factory, more than a dozen of them. The medicinal bath we left here is gone. They had already realized the problem, and their faces were grim. Their lair had been infiltrated by unknown individuals, who had stolen the extremely important medicinal bath products. This meant the mill's secret had been exposed, and anyone who had infiltrated would have easily killed any member of the mill staff. "Notify everyone to conduct a thorough search of the mill," Sloane ordered with a stern expression, then turned and left. Quietly following Sloane, Locke watched him return to his office. He carefully inspected the surroundings before coming to a bookshelf, pushing it open and lifting the wooden planks underneath. A moment later, a safe with a combination code was revealed. Seeing the safe intact, Sloane seemed relieved. He put the planks and bookshelf back in place, then sat down at his desk, lost in thought. After waiting for over an hour, someone knocked on the office door and entered, reporting, "No sign of any outsiders. The previous intruders should have left. Call all the well-known assassins," Sloane said after a moment's silence. Soon, Sloane's office was filled with over a dozen assassins, and Locke even spotted Mr. X, the slicked back-haired man he had fought the day before. Everyone was armed, their expressions serious. Someone had sneaked in and taken the medicinal bath. This was no small matter. "I'm sure you all know what's going on," Sloane said slowly. "Someone's targeting us. The key is that we don't know their identity yet, not even how many people came tonight. This person is definitely an enemy of destiny. We must find him and kill him. From now on, the textile mill will be on high alert, with fewer outposts and well-known assassins taking turns on duty. He's bound to reappear. I don't want us to be like we are now, letting him infiltrate at will, isn't it, Cross? He knows us best," Mr. X said. "And he needs the medicinal bath, too. Cross had suddenly betrayed us last month, and the mill had designated him its greatest enemy, dispatching its top assassins to hunt him down. There had been no news from his pursuers in days, and it was likely that he was in danger. That's possible, but if it's Cross, having infiltrated here, they'll definitely take action. We can't all be standing here intact." Sloane thought for a moment and said, "That doesn't fit Cross's style. It could be someone else, If he's an enemy of destiny, then he should be on the list at the loom. At this time, a female assassin spoke up. We can confirm his identity through the list. Locke recognized her immediately. She was the heroine Firefox in the movie, one of the few top female assassins in the textile factory. I'll check the list, but it will take time, and you can't relax. Chapter 94 Ideal Skills. By the time Locke left the textile factory, everything he'd wanted had already materialized in his mind. The safe had a mechanical lock, but for Locke, a careful use of his magic to sense the internal structure was all it took to pry the mechanism open. Locke quickly pored over the information contained within, memorizing it thoroughly. Besides the medicinal bath formulas, arc ballistics, and physical burst training methods he sought, there were also lists of fraternity members and anonymous overseas bank accounts. It was undeniable that Sloan, the old man, had made a fortune as assassin leader, with funds in several accounts totaling a staggering $30 million. Locke even speculated that this wasn't all of Sloan's assets, but only a portion of his hidden wealth. After acquiring these assets, Locke didn't immediately attack the textile factory, but instead planned to strengthen himself. In his previous battle with Mr. X, Locke had initially been unaccustomed to his arc ballistics and physical burst, and his cautious approach had led to a prolonged standoff. Once Locke mastered his tactics, he quickly forced Mr. X to abandon the dealers and gunmen in order to escape. Mr. X was the mill's top assassin, and while Locke could easily defeat him, that didn't mean he could single-handedly take down the factory's hundreds of assassins. After all, with dozens of men surrounding him and a hail of bullets hurled at him, it was inevitable he would take damage. While the custom-made armor could block most damage, it would still cause slowing and stiffening, and its ability to withstand damage had its limits. As for magical protection, Locke's magic skills were far from Balthazar's. Even with diligent practice, his meditation was only at the intermediate level. Magical protection might not be as effective as custom-made armor. Custom-made magic items were only designed to protect against surprise attacks, not as a frontal assault shield. That night, Mr. X had followed Damon and his daughter, who had just finished their work. It seemed they still didn't know their identities, but as long as they didn't attack, they would remain undetected. Locke needed to take advantage of this time to improve his abilities. First, he needed to master his newly acquired arc ballistics and physical burst. With the system's help, these two skills would appear on the system panel after just a few training sessions. However, mastering them required frequent practice, which meant practicing more meditation combat. Meanwhile, Locke was contemplating combining his various abilities to create a unique skill, Gunslinger. This skill was featured in the film Tear of Doom. Based on the film's setting, the official team collected extensive combat records and analyzed all possible opponent responses mathematically. They then compiled all these possibilities and created a unique combat skill that blended gunslinging and martial arts. It encompassed top-tier combat techniques and incorporated all weapons commonly used in individual combat, including pistols and rifles. This combat skill was highly varied and complex, allowing for a wide variety of moves to be displayed depending on the enemy's situation. Through countless practice, these refined moves made it difficult for the enemy to accurately determine their position, while also allowing for various evasive and counterattack strategies. This skill is nearly invincible in single combat, even allowing one to calculate enemy trajectory, evade incoming bullets as best they can, and counterattack in the midst of a hail of bullets. The underlying principle of this skill clearly demonstrates its significant difference from other combat techniques or tactical skills. Most combat techniques and gunfight tactics emphasize simplicity and effectiveness, then, through repeated practice, these simple movements become ingrained into the body's instincts. Gunslinging, however, is exceptionally complex, encompassing thousands of different movements, encompassing nearly every possible scenario. This requires on-the-spot judgment and the ability to select the most appropriate maneuver. This requires exceptionally keen senses and a powerful brain to rapidly assess and execute the necessary maneuvers in the ever-changing battlefield environment. Only a handful of talented individuals possess these qualities, and as a result, even with early talent cultivation in the film, the success rate in this combat technique remains alarmingly low. Every student of the Dao of Guns and Cannons in the film has diligently practiced since the age of 6. Most people might spend their entire lives never fully mastering even the basics, but achieving success is worth it. Locke now possesses the skills necessary to reach the highest levels of the Dao of Guns and Cannons. For example, he possesses the combined power of dozens of fighting techniques, the firearms mastery that allows for the mastery of various firearms, and the cold weapons mastery that integrates the techniques of various cold weapons. He has consistently cultivated these three combat skills through meditation and battle practice to the elite level. This system-assessed elite level is far superior to what most people consider elite. For example, without the arc ballistics and the physical burst, Mr. X would have been defeated by Locke in mere seconds that night. It was precisely this physical burst that caused Locke to repeatedly misjudge his opponent's position. The unexpected nature of the arc ballistics distracted Locke greatly, and Locke's desire to gather more data prolonged the battle. As Locke's mastery of his opponent's various parameters became increasingly refined, Mr. X quickly fell into disadvantage. He finally found an opportunity to escape, thanks to the desperate efforts of the traffickers to cover his losses in hurling grenades and other high-powered weapons. Locke's physical fitness is over 3 times that of an average person, and his strength, speed, and reflexes are world-class. Coupled with his exceptionally high intelligence, he can rapidly perform calculations and judgments that others struggle to achieve. Leveraging these strengths, Locke's current combat style bears a strong resemblance to the way of the gun. He can visually read enemy muscle data, gait, and other aspects, assessing their habits, potential movements, and the trajectory of their shots. Currently, Locke can only clearly assess the situation of 2 or 3 enemies at most. Facing more enemies, such detailed assessments are impossible. To emulate the way of the gun in the movies, he must synthesize and formulate appropriate tactical moves. Through rapid mental calculations, he can predict enemy positions and potential movements, then select appropriate countermeasures from a complex array of tactical maneuvers. Each tactical move might seem unremarkable, some even seem strange. Yet they are the most suitable for the corresponding situation, capable of maximizing the enemy's kills. Through extensive practice and even actual combat, one becomes familiar with this fighting style and refines these tactical moves. With systematic help and sufficient time, Locke can, step by step, realize this skill that only existed in his dreams. Chapter 95 Community Gathering. What have you been studying these days? Any special math problems? Peggy asked, looking at the draft in front of Locke. Just some basic statistics, Locke said flatly. To create the Gundeo skill from scratch, one needs to create the corresponding mathematical model. Currently, Locke is summarizing and analyzing all possible scenarios in combat. Once he got started, Locke realized it was much more difficult than he had imagined. It required a tremendous amount of calculations, as well as frequent meditation battles to gather a wealth of real-world case data. To achieve this, Locke added the potential points he had reserved for future use to his IQ. Even so, achieving initial results would take at least 6 months. As for refining the Gundeo, it was even more uncertain how long it would take, as it was a skill that could theoretically be continuously refined as Locke improved. It seems I won't be able to wreak havoc in the textile mills with Gundeo in time, Locke concluded. It's impossible for the daemons to remain silent for 3 or 4 months. They could only remain silent for a week or 2 at most. If they resurfaced, the assassins hired by Amick from the textile factory would surely target them again. Looks like we can only take action this weekend. Let's eliminate the textile factory first. We can handle the gun road issue step by step later, Locke thought, preparing to make a plan. Peggy didn't suspect that Locke was up to anything serious. She glanced at the manuscript and confirmed that it was indeed just ordinary calculations, then returned to her seat to finish her homework. At this time, Ashley came into the study with tea. After placing it in front of Peggy and Locke, she said to Locke, "Mrs. Bree's family is hosting a community party this afternoon. Do you want to attend?" "I see you do." Locke gave her a helpless look. "It's a good opportunity to relax." "I got a B+ on my school paper," Ashley said softly, hugging Locke's arm. "We don't usually participate in community activities, so this is a good opportunity to connect with our neighbors." "What's the point of these gatherings?" Peggy curled her lips. "How much interaction will these people have with us in the future? And what about a B+ from community college? Let's just get together and have fun." "Can you please stop saying that?" Ashley complained. "Besides, my grades are already very good in the class, as long as you like it," Peggy replied with a smile. Her condescending gaze made Ashley feel both angry and a little insecure. During their time together, Ashley knew just how talented Peggy was. The issues she discussed with Locke were like divine knowledge to her. Because Locke often studied and researched with Peggy, She had significantly reduced the time she spent with him, something Ashley had always been unhappy about. Despite being a woman's ultimate weapon against men, Peggy's assessment was that with so many beautiful women, Locke, if he wanted, would definitely have a tool like Ashley. But she was the only one who could discuss science with Locke, which put a lot of pressure on Ashley. Locke was no ordinary science geek. Such an exceptionally talented and highly desirable man, she naturally had to cling to him tightly. There was no such thing as giving up. There were simply too many other people watching. Okay, there's nothing wrong with attending once in a while. Locke patted Ashley's hand. Let's go. I can prepare a dish and bring it over. That's settled, Ashley said happily. Without bothering Locke any further, she took the tray and left. Do you want to come with us? Locke asked, looking at Peggy. I'm not going. I still have my engineering homework to finish. Peggy shook her head. Locke didn't force her. He checked the time, left the study, and went to the kitchen to prepare the ingredients. For a community gathering, one naturally had to prepare a signature dish. Tang Wei wasn't there, so Locke had to do it. Ashley's cooking skills were average, and she was already lying down. Of course, Locke wouldn't choose a dish that would waste time. He pulled 2 marinated beggar chickens from the refrigerator, shoved them in the oven, set the timer, and then just waited for them to come out of the oven. Meanwhile, Ashley had gone to the dressing room and soon emerged fully dressed. She spun around in front of Locke. How about I wear this to the party? Locke glanced over and saw that Ashley had changed into a knee-length skirt that perfectly showcased her figure. He shook his head decisively and said, I think you're trying to make those housewives jealous. It's better to be more low-key, but some things are hard to hide, Ashley said, looking at her chest with a look of embarrassment. Locke agreed wholeheartedly, but still said, you're just as beautiful in something ordinary. Be good and change. If Ashley really wore this outfit to the party, she'd probably be approached by a bunch of middle-aged and older men, which would be really troublesome. In the end, Ashley had to choose another outfit, tight crop pants and a silky white shirt. She looked smart yet somewhat charming. She stood in front of Locke and spun around. How about this one? Almost. Locke nodded, raising his wrist. It's almost time. Bring your special dish with you, and we'll go. Ashley went to the kitchen, packed a roast chicken into a food box, and headed out with Locke. Bree was well known among the town's housewives. When the two of them arrived at Bree's backyard, quite a few people had already arrived, mostly from the surrounding area, some with their children. This made the backyard quite lively. Most of them were dressed casually, in oversized shirts, t-shirts, and shorts. A few even wore slippers. Most of the young people were wearing casual or trendy clothes, like the jeans of the girl who approached Locke to chat. The jeans reached to the ankles, but only half covered the legs, with countless holes cut across them, revealing the whiteness of her thighs. The two strolled leisurely, chatting casually with everyone they met. They found Bree and Rex, a married couple. Ashley offered Bree her signature beggar's chicken. Locke and Rex each took a plate and approached a long table where the food was laid out, chatting as they picked at their food. How are you feeling? Locke asked. Fortunately, the doctor gave me some medicine, but it doesn't seem to be working. Rex frowned, saying he'd been feeling unwell for the past few days and wondered if he should see a different doctor. Then you should definitely be cautious. Maybe get another checkup. Your body won't lie. Want some? Locke picked up some onions and gestured to Rex. No, I'm allergic to onions. Rex shook his head. I'm sorry. Locke placed the onions next to the barbecue on his plate. Many Americans suffer from various allergies, and the overall rate is much higher than in Eastern countries. For example, Howard from The Big Bang Theory is allergic to peanuts and can't eat anything with peanuts in it. These are the unfortunate consequences of an overly refined lifestyle. Everyone is allergic to some things from birth, but aside from extremely severe cases, other allergies can be gradually adapted to and rendered harmless from a young age. The human body is highly adaptable, especially when young, but completely isolating it from the start can actually make allergies worse. Of course, Locke wouldn't dwell on this. Thinking of what Rex had just said, he offered Rex a suggestion. Besides getting another checkup, you could also be careful. The pharmacist might have given you the wrong medication. I've checked it, and the packaging says it's exactly what the doctor prescribed, Rex said. Perhaps you could have it tested. Locke shrugged. It's not uncommon for pharmacists to make mistakes and give you the wrong medication, and the consequences can be serious. According to the plot, Rex's death was caused by the pharmacist deliberately switching Rex's medication in order to woo Bree. Speaking of which, Bree's subsequent boyfriends after Rex's death all had significant issues, and it wasn't until the very end that they hurriedly found a lawyer. In Locke's opinion, Rex had some flaws, but overall he was a good person. A casual word could save Rex, so he naturally wouldn't just stand by and watch. Rex pondered after hearing Locke's words. He knew the pharmacist was coveting Bree, and with that in mind, an idea quickly took root in his mind. "Excuse me, I think I might need to go to the hospital." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96. You Really Care About Me, Rex said as he ran to his room. He needed to get his medication checked out. Locke found Ashley sitting at a dining table. "Hey," Locke said to Susan and Mike, who were sitting with Ashley. Seeing the food on Mike and Susan's plates, Ashley said, "What do you think of this roast chicken?" "Very good." "Did you make it?" Mike asked. "I guess so," Ashley smiled. "It's a Chinese-style roast chicken, a little different from what we have here." "You can cook Chinese?" Susan was a little surprised. Many Chinese dishes require complicated preparation, and many Americans know this, so they rarely cook. Susan couldn't help but look at the large German sausages she bought at the store on the grill, and she felt pressured by her own cooking skills. Of all the dishes brought by everyone, the beggar's chicken was the most unique. Locke had someone go to Chinatown to order the lotus leaf twine. While it wasn't as good as the authentic lotus leaf beggar's chicken, the packaging alone made it look very high-end. The same principle applies to branded chocolates, which are wrapped in gold foil to create a sense of luxury at first glance. Wrapped in lotus leaves, the food explodes with fragrance upon opening, creating a truly enticing experience. Mike and Susan, drawn in by the aroma, finally managed to snag 2 chicken thighs. Tasting them, they found the meat tender and crispy, with a hint of wine upon savoring. It was nothing like the typical roast chicken, which is often woody, and had a subtle sweetness that perfectly suited their tastes. This beggar's chicken recipe wasn't traditional. Locke had modified it, after all, since most people around him preferred sweet and sour flavors. "That's amazing. This roast chicken is the best I've ever had," Mike praised with a chuckle, then said to Locke, "I wonder if you've found the right person for the job you told me about the other day." "Not yet," Locke said. "Are you asking now? Are you planning to take the job, if you haven't already?" Mike nodded. "Welcome aboard." Locke smiled and shook Mike's hand. "Can you tell me what changed your mind?" "You know, I proposed to Susan a few days ago. Susan and I were planning our wedding, and then I realized I might need some extra income," Mike said. Locke's security company had already been established, and he had initially recruited a small number of bodyguards. They were now primarily responsible for the safety of Ashley, Peggy, and Tang Wei. Meanwhile, the training center and dormitories on the farm had been designed and were ready for construction. Mike was being assigned the task of overseeing the plumbing for the training center, and he was offering a good price. The farm was some distance from Town, and the drive there and back would take quite a while. This would reduce his time with Susan, something he had just gotten engaged to, and naturally, he didn't want. Plumbing wasn't a lucrative profession, and he didn't have much savings. Mike had previously received a sum of money from a wealthy individual, most of which had gone into his wedding ring. Susan naturally wanted a perfect wedding, a sentiment shared by every girl. Mike could only fully support her, at least to avoid being outdone by Susan's lawyer ex-husband. According to American custom, a girl's family is responsible for covering wedding expenses, and American families with the means often set aside a wedding fund for their daughters. However, this was Susan's second marriage. So naturally, there wasn't a wedding fund available. Mike and Susan had to cover wedding expenses themselves. After calculating the potential funds needed, Mike realized that he wouldn't be able to earn enough by continuing to take on jobs for the surrounding residents. That's why he decided to take the job offered by Locke. After understanding the reasoning, Locke smiled and said, "A wedding is indeed a big deal. I absolutely must support it. Here's how. I have a French-style manor on the farm. You can come take a look. If you like it, I'll use it as your wedding venue. It's my wedding gift to you, manor." Susan and Mike were both stunned. "Yes, it's over 6,000 square meters," which should be plenty for a wedding. Ashley has a lot of photos of the manor. After you've looked at them, if you're interested, you can go and visit it in person. Ashley, now intrigued, boasted, "It's a beautiful manor. The original owner had a French designer design it. I have a room there." Susan's interest piqued, and she began discussing it with Ashley. "Wow, that's incredible." Mike patted Locke's shoulder happily. "Thank you so much." "It's nothing," Locke said with a smile. "I know you're a great person, and Susan is Peggy's temporary guardian. I'm happy to help in any way I can." In a short while, the major issue was resolved, and Mike's mood brightened, and the atmosphere became lively. The party was lively and lasted until after 8 o'clock, when Locke and Ashley left. The next day, Locke and Peggy were driving to school. On the way, Locke suddenly said to Peggy, "I feel like there's something wrong with Ashley lately." "What's wrong?" "After returning from the community dinner, she asked me if I would always love her." Locke said, "That's not really in line with her character. She's always been very confident in herself." "How did you answer?" Peggy suddenly showed an interested look. "Of course I wouldn't let her leave unless she wanted to leave." Locke frowned and said, "That's what you did." "What did I do?" Peggy rolled her eyes and said with a smile, "You are poor Ashley." Locke said with certainty, "I didn't notice it before, but thinking back to the conversations between you and Ashley that I occasionally heard, I can feel it. Don't you like it?" Peggy looked at Locke with a smile. "You don't have to worry about her having any problems because of your philandering, and you don't have to bother to appease her. She will stay with you obediently. I am indeed very philandering, so I made it very clear at the beginning, and I will not use such means." Locke's tone was serious. "I have also specialized in psychology, but I will not treat people around me like this. This is at most a kind of psychological counseling." Peggy looked at Locke and said, "I didn't distort her thoughts. It's just that she had such thoughts in her heart, so I guided her along the way, and the result was also very good, and everyone will be very happy." "Then I'm telling you now, don't do this," Locke emphasized. Hearing Locke say this, Peggy pouted. "I'm not doing this for you." "There's no need," Locke said. "I don't want you to get used to this. It's not a good thing, especially for the people around you. It seems you really care about me." Peggy's eyes lit up, and she said with certainty, "If not, you wouldn't have gone out of your way to advise me." "I've never denied it," Locke said calmly. "You're very talented. It seems some of the things I had planned to tell you later, bit by bit, will have to be brought forward. Are you planning on being my godfather?" Peggy beamed. "So what kind of person do you want me to be?" "I just don't want you to go astray." Locke reached out and rubbed Peggy's head. "The rest is up to you. There's nothing wrong with being a little naughty, as long as you know the right limit." "Know the right limit? How do you know?" Peggy looked at Locke. "I'll teach you slowly," Locke said. Precocity was inevitable for a gifted girl like Peggy, and by this time her values were slowly taking shape. Locke could only try to guide her. After all, such a genius is capable of doing many very dangerous things. He doesn't want Peggy to develop a villain mentality, which would definitely cause Locke a headache. The average subscription has just reached 461. If I work hard, I think I can get full attendance and reach my basic goal of failing. Whether I can add an egg to the instant noodles depends on the readers. Chapter 97, Heavy Firepower Greeting. Locke didn't force anything on Peggy, knowing it might backfire. But he did have a new appreciation for her. It was hard not to be attracted to such a lovely girl, and after spending so much time together, they developed a deep bond, almost like family. Unexpectedly, however, Peggy's next topic left Locke feeling somewhat helpless. "Do you think I'm pretty?" Peggy suddenly asked. "You're still young. We can talk about this when you're older," Locke said. Peggy, however, was a bit unconvinced. "I'm almost 12, and most girls grow up quickly at that age. Even if you're going to be a beauty, you'll have to wait until you're an adult." "It's too early now," Locke said. He had no plans for that now, everything would just flow naturally. Locke said, and Peggy couldn't help but laugh. "Of course, I'll definitely be a beauty." Locke said nothing more. In America, many girls who are very cute as children grow up to be ugly, but judging by Linda and Barry, that possibility seemed unlikely. The first class is engineering. "Have you finished your homework?" Not wanting to continue the discussion, Locke changed the subject. Engineering is about applications, and for Locke, it's just as important as theoretical math and physics. It's related to his magical studies. "Of course I've done it," Peggy said, a smile on her face. "I hope Sheldon does it well too." and doesn't get ripped off by the professor without further ado. "That's the 6th time already," Locke said with a smile. The professor is really good at dealing with Sheldon, tearing up his work without any explanation, without even pointing out the problem, under the guise of wanting him to gain some insight and grow. "I remember Sheldon initially adored the engineering professor's strict rules, openly expressing his admiration for him. I wonder what he's really thinking now." Sheldon certainly appreciated the engineering professor's strict enforcement of the rules, even locking out latecomers without discrimination. Right now, Sheldon's anger is still brewing. Once he experiences the feeling of being locked out himself, he'll probably hate engineering to the core, Locke said. People are all double standard. In The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon clearly showed his dislike and rejection of engineering. Leonard and others never knew why. It wasn't until later, by chance, that they found out that it was caused by his engineering professor in college. Talking about Sheldon's embarrassing moments together is now a small pastime for Locke and Peggy. After a few days of realizing that there was no way to quickly master the art of guns and cannons, Locke simply gave up and planned to study it slowly in the future. He couldn't delay the weekend's work on the textile factory. On Friday night, inside the textile factory, Sloan held a notice in his hand, his face gloomy and uncertain. Brotherhood, intentional homicide, falsely claiming destiny, execution. This notice was found at the entrance of the textile factory not long ago and was quickly delivered to Sloan. Looking at the notice in his hand, Sloan suddenly sneered, "Daredevil." The cross betrayed him, and now even a small shrimp that appeared out of nowhere dares to provoke him. "Have you sent out the notice yet?" At this moment, more than a dozen top assassins gathered in Sloan's office. Although he called them small shrimps, since they dared to send a notice to the renowned assassin brotherhood, they were definitely not simple men. Thinking of the loss of the medicinal bath ingredients last week, Sloan, for the sake of safety, gathered all the forces of the textile factory to destroy the enemy with lightning speed and restore the textile factory's prestige. "Everything is ready," Mr. X nodded. "If that guy who claims to be Daredevil dares to show up as instructed, he will definitely not return. All right, then we'll wait quietly. The time limit is not long. Let me see if he's strong enough." Sloan waved his hand. The dozen or so people exchanged glances and each got up and left the office. Boom! Before anyone could leave the office, a violent explosion accompanied the factory's main gate, sending shattered fragments flying everywhere. Sloan and the others immediately rushed to the window to peer outside. "Nice power." Locke lowered the .40mm rifle from his shoulder, thinking that domestically made products were indeed inexpensive, durable, and powerful. Buy 3, get 1 free. Since he couldn't showcase his prowess in the art of guns and artillery, Locke figured it would be a good idea to use heavy firepower to make a show of force against the factory. The arms dealer had originally been showcasing products from American defense companies, but out of a sense of humor, seeing the .40mm rifle on the price list, he decisively ordered a batch. Sizzle! Another .40mm rifle was fired, its warhead trailing a long trail of flame as it barreled into the factory. Boom! Another explosion echoed, sending sparks flying through the factory. By this time, the factory's assassins, finally reacting, appeared everywhere. Seeing the car charging into the factory, they pulled their triggers. Soon, countless bullet holes appeared on the specially reinforced car. Bullets lodged in the car, then rolled to the ground nearby as it vibrated. This continued until the car's tires shattered and it crashed head-on into the wall next to the gate. The next moment, an electronic sound emanated from the car's trunk. Boom! Then, accompanied by a massive explosion, a corner of the textile factory's outer wall, resembling a city wall, instantly collapsed. Bang! 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 Amidst the stunned gazes of the assassins, a figure clad in black armor and a helmet appeared, surrounded by 7 or 8 textile factory gunners. "He's here, 4 o'clock, bang, bang, bang." While using the explosive vehicle outside to distract the enemy, Locke had already reached the textile factory's interior. The next moment, countless bullets were aimed at Locke, pelting the wall around him with a barrage of bullets, stripping away a thick layer of the plaster and the masonry within in the blink of an eye. "That's a lot of people." Locke, feeling his heartbeat beneath his helmet, couldn't help but lick his lips. Then it's showtime. Dozens of assassins attacked, a barrage of bullets sealing off the area. But the next moment, their expressions changed. Daredevil vanished before their very eyes. The scene was eerie. In the blink of an eye, he was gone. The renowned assassins who had rushed to observe the situation were equally astonished. As renowned assassins in the textile factory, their reflexes and dynamic vision far surpassed those of ordinary humans. They had always relied on their superior strength and incomprehensible tactical maneuvers to vanish before their enemies. Now, someone had pulled off such a trick, and even Sloane's expression changed. "Don't hold back. Everyone, kill him." Understanding the difficulty of Daredevil, Sloane immediately shouted an order, signaling the assassins to attack together. Chapter 98. I don't know how many cannon fodders you have left. The next moment, lights flickered on throughout the textile factory, illuminating it as bright as day. Every textile worker, gun in hand, searched for the unknown enemy. Unfortunately, Locke, cloaked in invisibility, was elusive, until gunfire rang out across the vast factory building, sending over 20 ordinary assassins searching the premises, spewing blood as they collapsed. Locke, clad in armor, had reappeared, a submachine gun in each hand. Its 40-round capacity was perfect for a one-on-many situation. Locke single-handedly targeted the assembled assassins, leaving gaping bloody holes in their heads. With Locke's elite firearms proficiency, he unleashed a sudden blow, his accuracy equal to that of a pistol within 10 meters. The faces of the renowned assassins searching elsewhere paled. The four closest among them simultaneously unleashed a burst of energy, bursting into the factory within 2 seconds. Then they saw Locke aim his submachine gun at them, causing the four infamous assassins who had just rushed in to have their eyes constricted. As they watched, Locke instantly emptied his magazine and unleashed a deadly barrage, instantly blasting the four men, exhausted and unable to react, interceive. The final image lingering in their minds was Locke's hands dropping to the ground, his hands darting to his waist. The next second, 2 Lolliks appeared in his hands. These Lolliks had been specially modified by Locke, not only increasing their rate of fire but also increasing their ammunition capacity, as evidenced by the extended magazines under the grips. Bang bang bang. Just then, another group of ordinary assassins rushed in from the passageway. These men had been searching nearby, and upon hearing the gunfire, they raced towards them. They were met by Locke's ferocious firepower. Outside, these ordinary assassins would have been considered elite, but before they could even catch a glimpse of Locke's shadow, they instantly fell to the ground in rows, like wheat being cut. Only the last few assassins finally reacted. Unlike their comrades who had preceded them, they hid in cold sweat at the sides of the entrances and exits, never again thinking of emerging to make a name for themselves. The 2 Lolliks spun swiftly in Locke's hands, and the next moment, 2 more similarly modified pistols appeared in his hands. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, 4 more high-ranking assassins rushed over and launched a swift attack, each aiming at Locke's vital points and firing a single shot. These 4 seemed to have learned their lesson, timing their incursions perfectly. Once inside, they dispersed and attacked from 4 different directions. An ordinary opponent would have been overwhelmed, but Locke's reaction was somewhat unexpected. His fingers squeezed the trigger one after another, instantly dispatching over a dozen ordinary assassins following behind him. As the bullets pierced Locke's body, his figure blurred for a moment, appearing 2 meters away. Combining magical illusions with invisibility, Locke, faced with so many opponents, was forced to take a risk, employing some magic that might reveal unusual features. The 4 men's precise marksmanship ensured their bullets accurately hit the illusions, leaving Locke unscathed. After fading from invisibility, he moved at full speed, his explosive speed leaving a faint afterimage in the air as he raced towards 2 of the name killers. Shocked by Locke's sudden display of exceptional speed, the 2 name killers remained calm, firing several rounds at Locke's likely path. Without any communication, the 2 name killers coordinated seamlessly, blocking Locke's approach. The brief exchange of blows made it clear to them that the Daredevil before them was no comic book parody. His power was formidable, far superior to their own. But they weren't fighting alone. In 5 seconds at most, at least 10 others would arrive, including other name killers. No matter how formidable this Daredevil was, he would be utterly annihilated in front of everyone. In a split second, Locke's angle of advance shifted slightly, his 2 guns swung wildly, and the 2 men were each struck by 3 bullets. Their expressions changed, and they dodged to the left and right, simultaneously opening fire. Simultaneously, the other 2 men also opened fire. The Daredevil was clad in armor, so a bullet might not kill him instantly, but a hit would affect and disrupt his attack, creating an opportunity for a counterattack. At that moment, Locke's body suddenly spun, his arms swung left and right, and his guns were trained on the two named killers behind him. The four named killers watching this scene suddenly changed their expressions. Impossible. Locke dodged the bullets from the two named killers behind him, and at the same time, the two bullets Locke fired, drawing strange arcs, struck the two men who were moving to avoid him. Puff! The two named killers each had a bullet hole in their heads, and fell to the ground with a thud. Mastering arcing fire and bursts of physical power had significantly enhanced Locke's strength. "How can you arc?" the two renowned assassins behind him instinctively asked, but Locke didn't pause, squeezing the trigger. A barrage of bullets arced, blocking all their escape routes. While they could also arc, they only fired a single shot for a surprise attack. None could fire the same continuous arcs as Locke could, blocking all their escape routes. Unable to calculate how to evade, they instinctively dodged in one direction, hoping to escape. The next moment, their bodies went limp, falling to the ground, meeting their doom. Locke's killing spree continued unabated. He quickly emptied his remaining ammunition with both hands and shot down the several hallways of the room. Several muffled groans accompanied the approaching footsteps, which had been thrashing towards him. Chuckling softly, Locke leisurely changed his magazine. His phantom reappeared, his true form cloaked to the side. If the method worked, he wouldn't be afraid to repeat it. Bang, 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 as expected, as if noticing him reloading, over 20 ordinary assassins rushed in from several passageways, aiming at Locke's phantom and attacking him relentlessly. Puff, 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 but the next moment, a bloody hole appeared on each of their heads. The phantom vanished, and Locke, reappearing, leisurely reloaded his magazine. With his hands lowered and the muzzle of his gun pointed at the ground, he said slowly, "I wonder how many cannon fodders you have left." Chapter 99 Occasionally Experience. After a heart-wrenching silence, 5 figures slowly entered the factory from the 3 surrounding entrances, surrounding Locke. They were also startled by Locke's performance. From his arcing shots to his swift dodging, his ability to appear meters away in an instant, they were terrified. A gunfight is a tightrope. A single mistake could result in death, especially in a duel between top-tier experts. The difference between escaping unscathed and losing one's life could be mere centimeters. The 5 figures moved slowly, forming a circle around Locke. Seeing Locke motionless, one of them, with a flickering look in his eyes, suddenly pulled the trigger. But at the moment the other person's hand moved, Locke casually swung his right hand back. Bang! A bullet arced and struck the infamous assassin who had attempted a sneak attack from behind. A bloody hole appeared on his temple. The grim smile of triumph still lingered on his face, but he was already dead. Locke shook his head. How did this guy become a killer? Doesn't he know that even ordinary people would be wary of a possible rear-end attack? Unlike Locke, who spoke calmly and relaxed, the other 4 named killers wore grim expressions, even a hint of fear in their eyes. The man who just died might not have been the strongest, but he was certainly not weak either. Such a named killer couldn't dodge Locke's shot. The key was that this daredevil used arcing shooting, arguably the textile factory's signature technique. It was precisely because of this explosive physical strength and arcing shooting that the textile factory, while perhaps inferior in numbers and power to the Continental Hotel, was able to subtly suppress it. Every named killer in the Continental Hotel was a legendary assassin of extraordinary accomplishment, and there were only a handful of such assassins in the entire hotel. And now this daredevil had brazenly used it, taking out so many of their companions. Where on earth did this guy come from? Not even the Cross could have such power. In fact, when Locke had dealt with a named killer earlier, he had used magic, using wind to influence his movements, preventing him from dodging his bullets. The sheer number of assassins at the textile factory was enough for Locke to take it seriously. Rather than his usual entertainment mode, Locke's glance sent the 4 killers' hairs standing on end. They sensed that Locke looked at them with the same gaze as if they were objects, like prizes about to be won by children. The situation froze for a moment, but figures quietly appeared at the factory's exits and windows, surrounding Locke in the empty center. The killers stared at Locke silently, sizing him up, but few dared to attack. The 9 killers lying on the ground were a formidable threat. It was as if half the textile factory had collapsed. The bodies of 70 or 80 ordinary killers pale in comparison. Locke, standing in the center, was equally indifferent, like a serene tiger, observing the slowly approaching wolves with apathy. "Are you Daredevil?" At that moment, Sloane's voice rang out. He entered from an entrance, flanked by several assassins, and scowled at Locke with a frown. Locke spoke, smiling as he tucked his gun back into his waist holster. "What? You want to surrender? You won't even have the chance to kill yourself now," Sloane said harshly. "No, I'm just making sure you can't escape," Locke shrugged, the ring beneath his glove gleaming. Sloane's eyes flashed fiercely. "You're saying that as if I'm the one facing certain death." "Indeed," Locke looked at Sloane and smiled. "And I'm not targeting you alone. I just want to tell everyone here that you're all garbage." This collective mockery was powerful, and everyone's faces suddenly changed. Sloane didn't want to continue talking nonsense and simply ordered, "Go." The next moment, Locke extended his arms, and with a sigh, he teleported through space, appearing more than 20 meters away from the factory. Boom, boom, boom. Behind Locke, a resounding explosion echoed. It was the explosives Locke had infiltrated long ago, their power carefully calculated. The blast sent flames soaring into the sky, engulfing all the assassins in and around the factory. Locke, having teleported to the clearing, watched the scene unfold. The entire factory building was reduced to rubble, and the violent tremors had also caused a small section of the adjacent textile mill building to collapse. Once everything returned to calm, Locke lowered his outstretched arms and smiled softly. As expected, art is explosive. That Hawkeye artist's catchphrase seems quite good. It's quite refreshing to experience it once in a while. Everything was just as Locke had planned. Within Locke's range of vision, only a few cats remained in the textile mill. However, with so much commotion here, the hide-and-seek situation wouldn't last long. It's a pity for Firefox. She had to be so close to Sloane. "I can't change my plan just because of this. Otherwise, I might have had a chance to persuade her to change her ways. After all, men love nothing more than to persuade girls who have gone astray." After Locke used his magical perception to eliminate the few who had slipped through the mill's net, he finished his work quickly. Hearing the sirens approaching the factory gate, he didn't bother to linger and quietly left the scene. Using magic to set the final trap was actually Locke's choice due to his lack of strength. He wanted to completely wipe out the textile factory, so he had to resort to traps. If he had truly mastered the gun and cannon path, Locke would have been confident he could fight his way through the entire factory head-on. Why would he need to resort to multiple spells in the initial battle, then set traps and use bombs to completely wipe out the factory? "So I still need to work hard," Locke sighed, disappearing into the New York night. The next Saturday morning, Locke and Tang Wei went to Monica's apartment for lunch as usual. Last night, a famous textile factory in New York City exploded. When the police arrived, a large part of the factory was reduced to rubble. Watching the morning's news, Tang Wei said, "How could a textile factory explode? It's usually not chemical plants or gas stations. And judging by the huge area that collapsed, the explosion must have been quite large. Maybe it was a gas explosion in the cafeteria," Joey interjected, having finally swallowed his food. "That's not necessarily true. Look, the gate and the wall next to it were blown open. Could the cafeteria be right next to the textile factory gate? Who knows? Maybe they accidentally mixed the dyeing and printing materials, and the explosion occurred. Some dyeing and printing materials are actually very dangerous and can explode when mixed together," Locke said. "What a shame. The napkins in our restaurant are all custom-made from that textile factory," Monica said. "Their products are very popular in New York high society." Listening to their discussion, Locke also chimed in. "According to the news reports, the cause is still under investigation and must have been suppressed. After all, the traces of the bomb explosion can be easily identified by anyone with even a little professional knowledge. Average subscription is 660. You guys are really awesome. Thank you for your support. 2 more chapters will be added tomorrow. Chapter 100, I Can Do Anything." Regardless, the textile factory situation had come to an end. Arc ballistics and physical burst had been mastered, but the recipe for the medicinal bath was a bit special. The most crucial ingredient was a rare flower from the depths of the Amazon jungle. This flower was revered by some local tribes, and Locke had even heard of it in a movie, The Blood Orchid. The textile factory had learned of the blood orchid years ago, and because it was highly dependent on its environment, they secretly established a cultivation base in Brazil, unknown to all but the successive heads of the textile factory. Locke could only find another way to acquire the special ingredient, or transplant it and cultivate it scientifically. Having solved this major problem, Locke was delighted with the mission's reward points. He figured his agility would soon reach 200. Having dealt with this major concern for the textile factory, Locke contacted Damon and his daughter, agreeing to resume the operation against the traffickers the following weekend, this time going straight for the culprit. In their quest for revenge, the Damons targeted the trafficking gangs that were primarily Damek's salespeople, affiliated subgangs, or even Damek's own strongholds. Their relentless attacks had already inflicted significant losses on Damek, leaving his position as New York's largest trafficker precarious. This was why he was willing to pay a large sum for the assassins from the textile factory, who commanded a high price. During the few days the Damons had been silent, other gangs had begun competing with Damek for territory. The resulting clashes would inevitably divide Damek's forces. Next week, the impact would spread, intensifying the clashes between other gangs and Damek, thus diverting Damek's strength and focus. To prevent Damek from recruiting assassins from unknown sources to target the Damons, Locke planned to eliminate Damek directly and complete the mission as soon as possible, avoiding further complications. After Monica and the others finished discussing the news about the textile factory explosion, she suddenly said, "Alice, there's a book signing for Magic Amy today. I'd like to go. Do you want to come?" "Sure," Tang Wei agreed without hesitation. Magic Amy. Locke was slightly taken aback by the familiar name. "Locke, do you know Magic Amy?" Monica asked, seeing Locke's reaction. "I've seen her photos. She's stunning." Joey looked fascinated. "She's a perfect, youthful beauty. I heard she just turned 18, Joey." Monica glared at Joey, then saw him raise his hands in surrender before continuing. "They say this book signing is to commemorate Magic Amy's coming of age, and the books being sold are special collector's editions." Magic Amy is a series of books written by a couple, telling the story of their daughter's life from childhood to adulthood, a series of bestsellers. Magic Amy in the books is the perfect girl in the eyes of many. Watching them discuss this, Locke thought of a movie he had seen in his previous life, starring the real-life Magic Amy. The real-life Amy wasn't as perfect as her book counterpart, but she possessed a unique talent. Years later, seeing her husband's infidelity and the family's financial crisis, she staged a series of dramatic events. Thanks to the diary and clues she deliberately left behind, countless news vehicles surrounded her home, searching for her disappearance or her husband's murder. At a crucial moment, she stumbled home, bloodied, to confront her husband, whose life had been thrown into turmoil by her disappearance. Her story of love triumphing over evil and her resilient return ignited widespread discussion. At the film's finale, she, accompanied by her fearful and reluctant husband, capitalized on the wave of popularity, participating in interviews and meeting fans. In a short period of time, the money earned by her husband resolved their financial crisis. Fearful yet reluctant to give up his lucrative future, he began to heed Amy's every word, and together they became the model couple. It's easy to see how women, faced with betrayal and the pressures of life, can do anything. Because Magic Amy's family lives in New York, there are many Magic Amy fans around the city. "I wonder what Magic Amy is like in real life," Monica thought, looking at Chandler. "Chandler, you must know Magic Amy, right?" "Why should I know? You really don't know," Locke chuckled at Chandler. "Well, I did meet her." With Locke still looking like he'd already given the lie, he could only speak the truth. After all, his mother, Nora Bean, had also made her mark in the New York writers' community, so it wasn't surprising that Chandler knew her parents and had met Magic Amy. Thinking of this, Chandler looked at Locke, but this was several years ago. "Locke, after you became famous for writing novels, you should have met her, right?" "No, I don't often attend writers' gatherings in New York." Locke shrugged his shoulders, "so we won't know what this magical Amy is like until we meet her." Monica sighed. "I heard that she will appear at this book signing event. When I was studying before, I thought about it. She is such a lucky girl. She has a pair of parents who love and cultivate her. Her life has been dazzling since she was a child." Thinking of this, Monica couldn't help but think of her own parents. Girls should have been more favored at home, but her parents only had the genius Ross in their eyes. They were picky about themselves, as if they didn't see their daughter at all. Seeing Monica's expression, Locke could only say, the content of books written is often embellished and packaged. Not every author is as scientifically rigorous as Beverly. Beverly, Tang Wei had naturally heard of Beverly. Isn't she a scientist? She's also a world-class parenting expert. She also writes about Leonard, but it's more realistic and professional. Locke introduced Beverly's book. However, several people present had never even heard of it, let alone read it. After all, Beverly's book, being specialized, is more niche, unlike Magic Amy's best-selling entertainment. After a brief introduction from Locke, Monica and the others lost interest in Beverly's book and returned to discussing the book signing. "Locke, do you want to come to Magic Amy's book signing?" Monica asked. "I'm not going," Locke shook his head. "I have to go to the farm later. I have some things to do there." He had already agreed with Mike to show him the farm's construction site today and let him and Susan tour the farm to see if it would be suitable for planning their wedding. "What a shame. You and Magical Amy are both geniuses, and you might have a lot to talk about." Monica was a little disappointed. Locke smiled silently. Provoking Magical Amy was a risky proposition, especially for a playboy like Locke. While his methods meant nothing, it was still better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Otherwise, Locke would have already been involved with Deborah Yowing, who had been harassing him recently. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.